Let's do the damn thing.
Oh, you know what time it is. It's time to take it to the Birdland. It's about to go down. Hope you all ready. Yeah, let's go. Come and roll with me to the Birdland. Friends got to giving you the word, man. Any other BS is absurd, man. Sports talking, they give it to you firsthand. They can talk Terps, they can talk O's. Yeah, they both lit. That's how it goes. Baltimore squad, Ravens and Poe. Better tune in. Here gonna show. Birdland, Birdland, Birdland. BS. Birdland, Birdland, Birdland. BS.
What's up about that BS, baby?
What's up, BSers?
What's up, peeps?
Fred, Scott, Ryan, James, and Drew. Drew is back from playing with Mickey Mouse down at Disney.
Just sounds wrong.
Sounds perverted.
That sounded a little wrong.
They don't let you within 6 feet of Mickey Mouse anymore.
Good to have you back.
In
And
reality, it's goofy, but
hope you guys had a good time down there, you and the family and everything. We got a lot to talk about on this week's show. The Ravens hold their annual pre-draft press conference, and we're going to play a little game of Fact or Cap, trying to figure it out. What's real? What's bullshit?
Hashtag liar's lunch.
Exactly. The Orioles sit 2 games below 500 after 16 games. Are they what we expected?
We'll get into that. I think there's some upside, some downside.
Right. Terps hit the football field this weekend, and Fred and Ryan are set to be there. You know, that'd be me. I'm talking about me in the third person.
Let's get in
He
that
does that
stadium
often.
they so rudely locked me out of for so long.
That's right. And some breaking news a couple hours prior to the show with the Terps. Certain player coming in, certain player going. So we're going to talk a little bit about that too.
It was a quiet week, but then all of a sudden it was a real busy day.
Right. And in this week's rundown, we're talking journeyman, retirements, A-Rod, Saban, and a new hockey record.
It's a lot.
It's a whole lot of shit going on in the world of sports right now. But before we do too much, we do want to remind you, if you've ever been injured at work or in an auto accident and weren't sure who to call, 855-MD-CRASH. The Maryland Personal Injury Attorneys that'll have your back. If you find yourself in an unfortunate situation, and I know I have, give our team at MD Crash a call right away. We all know the costs of medical bills, lost wages, pain and suffering, and all can add up quickly and potentially put you in a bad financial place. If you want a team that'll handle your case, big or small, and just give you some peace of mind, save this number now. 855-MD-CRASH. It's 855-632-7274. Be sure to follow them on Facebook for some fun giveaways, including tickets to some potential Oriole games. All right, Scott, it's time for some flock talk.
Yeah.
As we a little over a week away now from draft day.
We are almost there.
Yeah, I guess 9 days at this point away, which for you fans out there, we just decided literally half hour before we went live. Next week's show.
How we do things around here.
Yeah. Next week's show, we are moving to draft night. We're moving it to Thursday night, so we're going to live broadcast the draft-ish. If you've followed us for the past couple of years, we've kind of done this, draft day special. Sometimes we do it with the big play guys. Sometimes we've done it with our YouTube buddies. This year, we're just going to do it on our own for day one of the draft. Show you, what we can get away with without being kicked off of social media. Give our take on how the draft kind of shakes out. It's going to be a lot of fun. So make sure you tune in. Tune on your phone. Have the game, the draft on the TV. Comment. If we're going to have the phone open, so if you want to call in and talk about what you guys think the Ravens are going to do, we'll have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. All four of us are going to do one cam shot. All 5 of us over here, hopefully.
Yeah.
Ryan won't have to man the producer cam over there, so he doesn't have to worry about that. We'll just do everything over here. But it'll definitely be fun for sure. And make sure you guys, every week we kind of say it. Craig, I did get your question this week. It's coming up. It is in our Ravens segment here. If you guys have topics that you see throughout the week, you get into conversations on Twitter, Facebook, wherever, make sure you send those over to us, whether it's through Messenger, whether it's through tweeting us or tagging us in the tweet, whatever it may be. Make sure you do it to Birdland BS, and that's how we know you're talking about the show and that you want to use it on the show. Use the hashtag that's BLBS too. That's another way to actually get our attention, and we'll bring it up on the show. We are always everybody in this room is always looking for topics to bring up on this show. So you make our jobs easier if you give us topics.
Definitely. Shout out to Steven Severs, man. Birdland BS is in the house down in Miami. He's down there at the O's game in Miami. Appreciate you tuning in. I saw that Anthony Santander had to be helped off the field. Apparently he rolled his ankle. This happened like a couple minutes before we went live. It looked kind of rough. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. So with the Ravens, one of the things that I saw today made me feel a little old, like I do pretty much every day of my life, right? On this day, 25 years ago to the day, Ozzie Newsome solidified, in my opinion, his place in Canton as a GM. Forget his whole, stance as a player. Solidified his place in Canton as a GM when he drafted 2 Hall of Famers with his first 2 picks in Jonathan Ogden and Ray Lewis.
Yeah, I mean, you can't forget those guys. I mean, the shirt that Ray had on back in the day, standing there with his mama. I think we had it on earlier. Put the Ravens back up there. But, that shirt. And then obviously J.O., one of the greatest offensive linemen to ever play the game.
Yeah. I mean, Jonathan Ogden was, you remember back in the day, it was between him and Tony Baselli. Baselli was the left tackle for the Jaguars back then. They were always talked about as the best 2 left tackles in the league during their entire tenure there. I think Baselli retired a little earlier than Jonathan Ogden did, but was just as dominant at the end of his career as he was in the beginning of his career. Ray Lewis, obviously, you don't need to say a whole lot about Ray Lewis other than his name. I mean, he was everything that this Ravens franchise has been built around for, the last 2 decades. We're just now starting to see that the tide turn with this new image, and you got the new GM in there with Eric DeCosta, and obviously the new leader in Lamar Jackson. Things are starting to change. But these are 2 icons that, for not Ozzie Newsome to knock it out the park the way he did in his first draft as Ravens GM. Pretty fucking impressive. I don't think there's too many other GMs out there that can have that on their resume, that in one draft with the first 2 picks, they picked Hall of Famers. Yeah, nobody comes to mind.
And it just goes to show you the organization too, right? Because obviously he's consistently drafted pretty well. And I think the Ravens, was it late last week or mid last week, they were announced as having I think it was the 7th best draft into over across a 10-year period. Right. So just to have that honor and be up there and considered one of the highest. I heard somebody else that said that they thought that they were higher than that, but the official thing that I saw was 7th. So I don't know if that changed. And I think in the press conference I heard somebody say that they were the best, and I don't know. I've
seen so much bullshit rankings out there when it comes to GM. I was telling Ryan the other day, I saw something about Eric DeCosta being ranked like the 17th ranked GM in the last, I think the span that they were looking at was basically since he took over. So the last 2 seasons that he's been the full-time GM, this being his 3rd, right? Because the Lamar draft was still Ozzie's draft.
That was Ozzie's draft.
That was his bow out, which is a pretty damn good bow out when you draft a guy like Lamar Jackson in your draft. Your franchise quarterback to start your career with 2 Hall of Famers and end it with a potential franchise quarterback. Yeah. It's pretty damn good. But speaking of the draft, the Ravens did have their annual pre-draft press conference.
What's it called again?
Liars Luncheon?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, more like it. John Harbaugh, Eric DeCosta, and Joe Ortiz were there to answer questions. Some of them you get the politically correct answer, the blow-off. Some of them you get just total BS.
Some of them is straight. And he admitted, that's the best part about it, is they admitted to bringing guys in that they really have no interest in, but they bring them in just to get them on the radar to throw people off the scent.
And I get it. I mean, right now, this is the time where you're just trying to keep everything as close to the vest as you possibly can. Yeah. You do not want to tip your hand one way or the other when you're walking to the draft room at all. You don't want any teams to have any idea what you're doing. And actually, I thought DeCosta made a great point, was that when he talked about drafting Lamar Jackson, he talked about Lamar not having representation, not having an agent, right? And he said that was the easiest way for him, because he didn't have an agent, to keep their connection to Lamar Jackson a secret.
Yeah. I think he said when agents get involved, shit gets out, basically. I mean,
100%.
Not that terminology, but basically that's what he said. When agents get involved, shit gets out.
Exactly. And so the Ravens are going to do everything that they can to protect themselves. But there was a lot to digest to say the least, in this press conference.
Yeah, I mean, there was a few things to kind of look at. Obviously, one of the big things was he wants to look and say, for them, they have 200 players on their board.
Yeah.
Right, that they're looking at.
It's a pretty impressive number.
It's a big number to be looking at. I think last season, you were the one that called out. I think last season was like 170 or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. So they had 170 draftable players by their grade. So for them to say they have over 200 players draftable in this draft goes to speak to the depth. Now, that's total draftable players. That's not necessarily draftable players to their needs, but have the Ravens ever really drafted to need? No. Historically, it's always been best player available. So,
and to that point, I think that's where, like, I was actually surprised to hear this, but at the same time, I'm like, thank God I'm finally hearing somebody say it, because he said it's really not a whole, like, it's skill because you got to rank guys and rank them in the way that you want them. But there's a lot of freaking luck involved in this.
And to quote him specifically, he said, the draft is a luck-driven process. If you have more picks, you're going to hit on more good players. And that's exactly right. And I mean, that is the Ravens' MO historically, is that they'll move around in the draft to stockpile picks, because he's right. It in a lot of ways, it is a form of gambling, right? Because you're only going off of what your scouts say. You're only going off of what you see on tape. You're only going off of what you see at the combine. And all those things are helpful, but there's never a guarantee as to how their game is going to translate from the collegiate game to the NFL.
It's kind of, like you said, it's gambling. The more money you put in, the higher likelihood you get a larger return. If you're going to put in little bits at a time, you're going to get smaller bits and less likely to hit anything big.
Not me. I don't care how much money I put in, little or big. I always fucking lose my ass.
Well, that's because you don't know when to walk away, buddy. Brian and I experienced that. You were
true.
up with us and then didn't walk away.
I put another $300 into Doge last night. That fucked me. So
I tried to tell you no.
I know.
I was up enough the last one went to the casino to cover all of us, though.
There we go.
That's right.
But no, it's just the fact that that's the case. And he kind of went all in with one of the things that he was saying about how many draft picks.
Yeah, so obviously the question is this year, the Ravens don't have a ton of draft picks right now in comparison to some years in the past, right? And we kind of talked about this last week on the show, and Cole Jackson, again, shout out to Cole for being on the show last week, made a good point. Like, this isn't a year for the Ravens to stockpile a ton of picks, because there's really not a ton of roster spots available, right? So in a year where the Ravens might try to trade back and gain a couple of picks and pick 11 or 12 players in the draft, more than likely you're not going to see that this year. That is typically their MO, but I don't see the Ravens. I'm not saying they're not going to trade back, because I do believe the Ravens will trade back, especially in that first round. If one of their top 2 or 3 players that they have an eye on are gone at that point and they see more value in trading back, they may do so and then take those picks that they garner to move up in later rounds as well. So it'll help them, but it's not to just say, okay, I'm trading back to get 2 extra picks to now take 11 players in this draft. I just don't see them doing that.
So, I kind of alluded to this before, where I think if we're going to trade Orlando Brown, it's coming after the draft, right? Because then you can stockpile for next year's draft and get some value for next year and beyond. What I think this year, what are the Ravens one of the kings at doing other than piling up draft picks?
Dumpster diving.
The undrafted free agency.
Yeah.
Right?
Historically, they've always found at least one.
They talked about some of this. It was questioned, how do you evaluate some of these guys that literally haven't played in over 400 days? Right. So it starts to become a question mark. And now I'm starting to say, okay, how many of these guys are they watching going, keep falling to the undrafted, keep falling to be undrafted? Because everybody else got their guys on guys that played more last year and guys that didn't opt out.
Right.
Or they're focusing on the guys that were doing well before the opt-out, and they're saying, all right, we're still going to stick with that guy because he's the best guy there.
Right.
But is he when he didn't play last year? Right. So I think you're going to see them pick up a bunch of guys on the undrafted side of things, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them sign more undrafted players and keep them on the starting roster than they do draft picks this year.
That's stretch. to keep them on the that's a stretch.
What are you going to give away to get more draft picks this year? You don't have a whole lot.
No, and there's a lot that can still happen prior to the draft, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit as far as draft picks go. Drew, I kind of want to see where your head's at with this thing. I mean, do you think the Ravens stay at 27, or do you see them trading back to gain picks or move around?
I tend to think a lot of times when we in this back half of this draft, and they have a couple different needs, I tend to normally always say, no, they're trading out.
Right.
Or maybe not out, but back to 29, 30, 32, something like that. But how many times have we seen, especially now with the one-night draft, the first round's in one night.
Right.
I hate that.
Yeah. You're like, oh, yeah, I'm going to stay up. They got pick 27. Oh, fuck, it's 11 o'clock. All right, just don't trade out. And then you go, oh, they're traded with the Jets, and they now have the 33rd pick. It's like, what do I waste my time with this draft for?
Yeah, that used to be completely fine because you would get to see 2 second-round picks in the first day, but now nothing.
You're just like, all right, 5 o'clock, they'll make a pick. No big deal.
Yeah.
Right.
But so I think every year almost I'm almost like in driver's mode with they're going to do that anyway. I mean, me, I've said it enough. I don't need to say it anymore about Marshall. That's my pick. But, I mean, to me, this is one year where, I don't think I would mind them dropping out because I still think you could get Marshall. There's still players I could see them getting in the early 30s if that was the case. I don't want to see them dropping back to 45 or nothing like that because then I'm like, what are you really getting then? It's even more of a crapshoot.
Right. James, I kind of want your take on this too. Drew, you bring up Marshall. I'm talking about Bateman, right? There's two of the wide receivers, I guess, that have been most projected to us. But the thing with those are you're getting inconsistent reports. Some people are saying that those two guys could potentially go before us at 27. You have some people who say that they could go potentially after us at 27. So what do you want to see out of the Ravens? Do you want to see them stay pat at 27, move back, move up?
Since they drafted Lamar, I think they're going to draft on day one.
Okay.
And I wouldn't be surprised if we actually move up.
Really?
Yeah, I think Eric's going to try something different than Ozzie has done in the past, and you never know. This could be the year that they do it. When Lamar was drafted, we traded back in.
True. That's very true. I think a lot of that was, one, obviously, to make sure you guarantee Lamar, but it was also to guarantee that fifth year of that rookie contract for a quarterback.
And now it's paying off now because
100%.
I don't think they're going to get a deal done before camp anyways.
Well, so that brings up the next point, right, in this whole press conference conversation was DeCosta was asked about the Lamar Jackson contract situation. He said that he has had discussion with Lamar's about the extension, said it's a fluid process, but noted that Jackson's a patient person. I'm confident that we'll continue to discuss this, and at some point, hopefully, we'll have some good news for everybody. To me, that sounds pretty optimistic. Is that cap or bullshit? Do you think that happened? I mean, is that fact or bullshit?
I think it's fact, right? I think Lamar.
Fact in that they get that done this year?
Depending on what they do in the draft. I think Lamar is not going to sign a contract before the draft, period. It's not going to happen because he wants to look and see what are you doing to help me?
I agree with that.
If they go get an offensive tackle in the first round, knowing that OBJ this year or next year is out the door, period. He wants to see how much are you going to protect me? How much are you going to help my line? How much are you going to help me with wide receivers, right? How are you going to shore me up so that you ensure my future is at the forefront? That's what he's a smart kid. He's not dumb by any means. If he were signing a contract and they signed that contract, I honestly would turn around and be like, are you seeing the same thing that everybody else here is seeing?
Right.
You have no idea what's coming at right tackle right now.
Yeah.
No idea. You don't know if you technically don't know what's coming out on either side. You're hoping Ronnie Stanley comes back ready to go.
Right.
Everything is saying he's supposed to.
Yep.
Nobody's seen him play yet.
It's exactly true.
So it's a lot of question marks. I don't think it makes sense.
James.
I think Eric and Lamar, they're talking like, hey, we're going to get a deal done. But what happened last year, it's a fluke. We don't know what the salary cap is, but let's start talking what you're thinking your numbers is and say, hey, when we see how the season's going, what we think the cap would be towards the end of the season, I think they'll get a deal done by saying this is what the number's going to be, this is what's going to be best for us to work out the numbers to be in the right spot and have everybody happy in both times.
Yeah, no, I mean, 100% I can see it happening. I listen.
Eric wants to get it done.
I think you'd be naive to think that the Ravens aren't going to try to be super aggressive to sign Lamar. Does that happen prior to this draft? I don't think so either. Do I think it happens potentially prior to the season starting? I do. Because, like you said, I think he'll have a better idea of what's going to be around him for the next few years, protection-wise and weapon-wise, and that's going to give him because Lamar's not an idiot.
No,
he knows he's going to
smart.
get paid, whether it's by the Ravens or he goes out and hits free agency.
Well,
somebody's going to pay him a shit ton of money.
He wants, like, you have to think about this from his perspective. He wants to wait to see what happens in the draft. But he wants to get a deal done before the season starts. Because once the season starts, you increase the likelihood that something could happen, right? And he's being a realist, right? You have to be a realist in that situation. I want to lock up a deal if I'm a player before the season starts because anything that happens in the season, even week 1, can start affecting that contract.
So our buddy Samuel L. Jackson brings up a great point. Thanks for bringing this up, Ryan. For the Ravens' best interest, they need to sign Lamar before the Bills sign Allen.
And that's straight from Lamar's daddy. So, I mean, that's...
No, but he's 100% right? We already talked about what Mahomes' contract did to the market. Then you follow that up with Dak's contract and what that did to the market, right? Mm-hmm. If Josh Allen, I mean, there's nobody that's comparable to Lamar Jackson, right? But what Josh Allen brings as far as that multi-threat, he's got the ability to throw the ball.
He's the closest.
He's got the ability to run the ball, right? He is going to set the market. One of these guys is going to set the market, and I think it would make sense. It's more advantageous for the Ravens to get that deal done. So it's a great point. Go ahead, James.
Real quick, talk about Josh Allen. I keep up the sports track on my my computer, and they're projected his contract could be a 6 years total, but 4 years, $168 million. Average salary $42 million. Signing bonus $25 million.
Yep.
Guarantees $78. Practical guarantees is $115. Total in 6 years, $194 million.
Yeah, so that's right where I expected it to be, that $40 to $45 million range. But to Steven's point, if Allen signs first and the Bills...
He signs at 42, Lamar's getting 45.
How long have the Bills been looking for a franchise quarterback? Since fucking Jim Kelly. That's been a long time now, right? Like, so they're going to pay. They don't want Josh Allen to go anywhere. They're going to pay a good penny for Josh Allen, and you don't want that to negatively affect Lamar. Because you're already going to be handicapped with how much money you're going to be able to spend because of his contract, right? You don't want anything else to drive that up.
Dax was high. So they're looking at Deshaun Watson. He signed a 4 years, $156 million extension with $73 million guaranteed. So I think it's going to be, like you said, we hope we get it signed Lamar first than Josh Allen, because even though Josh Allen is a great quarterback, Lamar has a higher ceiling, I think. So it's going to end up being more money.
Oh yeah, 10 out of 10 times I'm taking Lamar over Josh Allen. 100% I agree with that. But again, to the market, Josh Allen is going to get paid in that top 5 money.
Yeah,
you were right the first time too. Over Josh Jackson, 7 days a week.
Over Josh Jackson, 14 days a week. No, so the other thing that kind of came out of this was Harbaugh and DaCosta being asked about and Horitz all being asked about the whole wide receiver situation, right? That was a pain point for fans and apparently for the front office.
Yeah, so this was inevitable. You knew this question was going to come up, right? Because it's everything that everybody talks about on social media from a fan's perspective. And rightfully so. People have been frustrated with the passing game as a whole and with the wide receiver core as a whole.
I think the Ravens, and just put this out there, all sports teams need to stop looking at fans as fans and start looking at them as investors.
Right.
Because that's, especially your season ticket holders, that's what they are.
Yeah. Well, DaCosta, he didn't blow this question off. He actually had a pretty surprising response, and I want to get your guys' takes. Take a listen to this.
One of the questions I get from fans all the time is, for the wide receiver position, you've been able to draft Pro Bowl players at every single position. What is it about the wide receiver position that you have not been able to do so? And is that something you guys even think about?
I mean, do we think about it? I mean, I guess we think about it, but we want to win games. You know, I mean, that's really what I think about more often is why did we lose the game or why did we win the game? So we want to have good players at every position. You know, I'm aware that there's some fan discontent with our wide receivers and our drafting and all that. I mean, but in general, I look at our record and how we win games and how we play football, and I'm proud of the team. I know Coach is proud. I know Joe is proud. So we've got some really good young receivers. It's insulting to these guys when they hear that we don't have any receivers. It's quite insulting. I'm insulted by it too, to be honest. So I think we've got some guys that want to show everybody what they can do. We love our team. We love our roster. We've got a lot of really good young football players who care very badly about it. So I can't answer the question about Pro Bowlers and all that. I mean, if Pro Bowlers get voted Pro Bowlers, they're Pro Bowlers. But I think we've had a lot of good receivers here over the years that have won big games for us. And I know this. I think Lamar likes our receivers. You know, I think our coaches like our receivers. I think the teammates, the guys in this team, like our receivers. And that's my answer to that question.
So to me, just instant reaction was, well, damn, that's pretty defensive. Like, you know, usually these guys don't take offense to what fans say or what the critics say, right? They tell players all the time, don't listen to the media, don't listen to the fans, don't listen to the negativity, right? Well, these guys are obviously listening to that, because if he takes it offensive and he, you know, he's a little sensitive to it, because and when you compare it to other positions, right, he's been candid about the offensive line needing to improve. Why isn't he defensive of the offensive line? He's defensive when it comes to the receivers. So I thought it was kind of interesting, and I wanted to get your take on it.
So, look, nobody is saying we don't like our wide receivers. I think that's where the misunderstanding, or maybe that's why he's getting defensive. Boykin I don't like, right? That's one I don't like. The rest of the wide receiving core I'm okay with. Right, I'm okay, but none of them are superstars right now. And you can sit here and you can say, this is one thing, it's a pain point, and I'll stick on it. You can say these guys want to prove something. They're young and they have something to prove. You're 100% right, Eric. Then give them the fucking chance. Play a scheme that gives them the chance to do so. Put Duvernay out there and Prochet out there. Give them the chance. But we didn't see that last year. So that's why the fans are, you got these guys. You were so high on Duvernay. Mm-hmm. And he got such minimal snaps last year that we don't know what he can truly do.
Again, he was a rookie. It's usually first-round picks that are immediate impact starter kind of guys in their rookie year. So I understand our frustration, because we see the potential in these guys, talking about Duvernay and Prochet, and we want to see them see the field. But I think it's a little unrealistic of fans to think that they would have had this amazing impact year one.
No, but you can't know what you have if you're not testing them out.
I agree with that. They did use them, some. They also had a veteran in Willie Snead. Let's not get it twisted. Duvernay was drafted to eventually replace Willie Snead, and now we're here. This is the year for that to happen now that Willie Snead has moved on. So you got to give these guys time, right? And it's the thing that frustrates me with some fans. I'm frustrated with the offense, the production of the passing game specifically, right?
Right.
No team is perfect. Every team is going to have holes. That's the whole purpose of a salary cap, is that teams can't build these mega teams like they do in baseball, right? Football, it's all about drafting smart, budgeting smart, and paying these guys without overpaying, right? But you're still going to have holes on the field. And right now, we have some holes at wide receiver.
Yes.
And I do think that the Ravens need to address that. So that's kind of where I was on both ends of this whole thing. You know what I mean? I didn't like that he was defensive about it, because that just goes to show that maybe you don't have as much confidence in him as you might lead on to be.
But then why did you feel the need to go out and give Juju an offer? Why did you feel the need to go out and give Sammy an offer?
So to that point, I think Dan Orlovsky on ESPN said it best. Listen to Orlovsky's comments, because I think he summed this up.
And then we're going to go to the couch and Ryan.
They're wrong. I mean, respectfully, you're wrong. You're a great organization, but the tape says otherwise. In the last 2 years, your receivers are bottom of the NFL when it comes to catches and yards. That's with your quarterback winning MVP one of those seasons. Okay, so the tape is what the tape is. None of us are saying that the Ravens receivers are bums. We're just saying that they need to make an upgrade. Also, DaCosta, again, respectfully, you offered Juju Smith-Schuster like $12 million. So you have sent some of the same sentiments as us, is that you need to upgrade the wide receiver position. And the last thing I would say is this. It's probably one of the more favorable matchups receivers get in the NFL as well, because everybody defensively is focused on stopping the run. So you have more bodies down near the line of scrimmage, less coverage kind of body-wise for those receivers. It's so often one-on-one. You don't have to go beat double teams like some of the really good receivers in the NFL do. So at the end of the day, the tape is what the tape is. The receivers are good. They're not good enough.
I think he summed it up perfectly.
He went right to the point that I was bringing out, right? If you didn't think if you thought they were that good, you contradicted by yourself. But again, this is called a liar's luncheon for a reason.
Yeah.
So this could be a tactic to throw off the scent and maybe looking to have a Marshall or a Bateman fall even further and being able to maybe trade back and say, all right, these guys are going to fall out of the first round. Could we see both these guys fall into the second and trade out and grab the one that we want? Maybe. I don't know. But that's why it's called a liar's luncheon, because I don't necessarily, yes, did my initial gut instinct, like exactly like Dan Orlovsky trying to call his bluff and be like, really, dude? Like, come on.
Right.
What are you looking at? We're all seeing the same thing here. And your actions are saying different. But it could very well be a tactic.
Well, they were asked about the draft coming up and some of the wide receivers that were in the draft. And DaCosta said there are a bunch of wide receivers within the first 3 rounds that could come in and make an impact immediately. So they are obviously looking at this, right? So they're not completely confident that the wide receiver core that they have right now is who they're going to go into week 1 with. Ortiz was asked specifically about Bateman and Marshall, said both talented guys who have some versatility, a little different in what they do best, but certainly 2 guys who we have our eye on. So it's not just us that feel confident about Bateman and Marshall. Obviously, these guys do too.
You feel that they're on the board, right? But if somebody that they were projecting is going in the top 10 is on their board, and that guy somehow falls back, they're going to look to see, do we want this guy? Is he worth it? Why is he falling? And then we'll go from there, right? That's why it's so unpredictable in everything that's happening.
Well, in relation to this whole discussion, Craig Zero, fan of the show, on Twitter brought up this point. He said, Eric said that us fans saying we don't have wide receiver is an insult to them and the team. I say he doesn't see that our system doesn't create elite wide receivers and hasn't been addressed properly. Is he not willing to admit that flaw of the Ravens organization? So my answer to that is simple. Does that benefit the team in any way by him publicly going there and saying anything about that? No, it doesn't. It doesn't benefit the team in any kind of way. Does he personally feel that? I'm sure he does. He's not the only one that doesn't see the lack. I mean, just the stats tell the story. When you look at the numbers, right, they're the bottom of the barrel in the passing game. He's well aware of that, right? But there's no benefit to the team going publicly and saying that there's an issue with that.
I agree with that.
Address that internally.
I think, but that goes back to your point and to kind of to Craig's point, right? He brought up the opportunities on the offensive line, right? Yeah. He's brought up opportunities previously on the defensive line before. So he has no problem. It's just something about this is weird. It's off. I don't know what it is.
But this question is more geared towards system, which then gears towards the coaching. So I think, fair enough. I think Eric DaCosta's point about the offensive line is more about personnel as far as player personnel, right? It's not about the coaching staff. This is more of a question specifically geared towards system, I guess, which isn't player.
It boils down to, do you think there are uncoachable players out there
that we have on our roster right now?
No, what I mean by that is some guys, right, it might just be uncoachable, right? They don't truly take in the feedback that they're getting. They don't truly take in the recommendations, of making adjustments or the extra workouts, things like that. Right. There are guys out there that don't do that. The Ravens historically, I don't know what the difference is. I don't know. I can't tell you, but there's a clear difference in the same division between us and Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is a goddamn wide receiver factory at times.
Yeah.
Right? The Ravens, what's the last draft pick that we had that was successful? Torrey?
Yeah.
Outside of that, we're great on the free agency, right? With getting guys at the end of their career, making a huge impact. Steve Smith, Anquan Bolden, right? Maybe it's Sammy Watkins. We've done it historically, but we've never developed. And I think that's where Craig's going with this statement is there's an organizational flaw, and I get that he's not doing that, but then to get defensive about the guys that you have when there's been a clear history of an organization. You're not a GM that just came into this organization. You've been around this organization for a while.
Yeah. Since
right?
it began.
So possibly, could your mentality be a part of the problem? Not saying it is. I'm throwing ideas out there of where Craig's coming from and
I
what the thought process could be for some fans.
He obviously knows there's an issue because he was very desperately clear that he wanted to upgrade through free agency. He went out there, to your point, offered a bunch of money to Juju Smith-Schuster. That backfired in his face. Then he went out there and offered money to T.Y. Hilton. That backfired in his face. And then he went out there and went with a safety net in Sammy Watkins.
There was also the rumors that he was going after Galladay right before the Galladay
exactly. And that entire situation to me smelled like desperation, right? Then, you also bring in 2 new coaches to the staff. You bring in T. Martin and Keith Washington. Those are direct hires because of the issues in the passing game and with the scheme, right? Yeah. So they're obviously recognizing there's an issue and they're trying to address it. Like I said, there's just no benefit for them going public and bashing the coaches.
Fair enough. I think his point is just like kind of going against what you were saying was he's getting defensive, but yet you're willing to admit holes in other areas. So it's just interesting to see.
So Ryan, one of the things that they talked about in this draft meeting, the press conference, that I thought you, of all people, would have liked, Ortiz was asked about Maryland running back Jake Funk. And his response to him was very positive. You can see his face kind of lit up, said he's competitive as can be, notes he's been an outstanding special teams player at Maryland, and that matters to the Ravens. It always has mattered to the Ravens, right? The Ravens hang on to their good special teamers. Obviously, they just re-signed Anthony Levine to, I think, his 11th year here or maybe 10th year here. 11. I can't remember what it is. Yeah, something like that. So special teams is obviously important to the Ravens. And then Jake Funk was on Good Morning Football today and had about 5 minutes to kind of self-promote himself on there. I'm telling you, he knocked it out of the park. He's so well-spoken. Seems just collectively like a genuinely good dude, a smart dude. What do you think your prospect would be of having Jake Funk here with the Ravens? Like, would you be happy to see that?
I'd be very happy to see Jake Funk with the Ravens. Unfortunately, I believe that if Jake Funk is with the Ravens, it will be as an undrafted free agent. So I'd, for Jake's sake, hope that doesn't happen.
Right.
But if he does not get drafted, I would love to see him on the Ravens and get him here. I would, if the Ravens would spend a draft pick on him, great. I just don't see the Ravens doing that with where they're standing with their running backs, with what they've done in the past. So I think that if the Ravens get him, it would be because they were the best fit option when he could pick his team instead of the team picking them.
Well, he did again in that statement with Good Morning Football today. He did promote himself, and he said, what he brings to the table is more than just being a running back, that he's a football player, right? That not only can he, bring value in the running game, but to your point where we talked about him being a potential fit for the Patriots, he could slide out in the slot, be that wide receiver, which I know Jobeth talked about him potentially being drafted as a wide receiver and not a running back. And then obviously the added value of special teams. He said in 2 years he had 32 tackles in 2 years on the special teams unit. In my opinion, he's going to get drafted. It's just a matter of where. I think this guy's probably a late 4th, early 5th, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. It's just he's so far all over the place. People saying he's going to be a good pickup undrafted versus a couple people saying he's a just early day 3 pick. I have not seen pretty much anybody outside of this room that says he's a 4th round pick, but I wish him the best. And if the Ravens do it, I'm going to be jumping for joy because it's been a while since I had a Raven a Terp to really root for on the Ravens.
Right.
I always liked having Torrey there.
Yeah, it seemed like every decade we had one, with Jermaine Lewis in the early days and then Torrey. So maybe Jake Funk will be that next wave of Terp that comes through. I hope so. I'd be excited for it.
So another thing I did want to bring up, because we brought it up a little bit earlier, but we didn't get into it, is the whole OBJ situation, right? So it was addressed in this, and then I know that we're going to get into some more discussions, but he was asked about trade discussions regarding OBJ. He shut those down immediately. He said, I'm not discussing any potential ongoing conversations or discussions that are happening with any players. Typical GM
to the point I made earlier, that doesn't benefit the team to talk about that. So why would you?
And then he also wouldn't confirm that Alejandro Villanueva had a visit. That had gotten out that he was, he was one of the guys that they were looking to bring in to potentially replace him. Obviously, Ian Rappaport was the one that reported him coming out, and former Steeler, right? He's going to know the system very well. He's been around for a while. I think he's 32.
Yeah.
At this point, so he, for an offensive lineman, he's getting up there, right? Those guys start. This is about that time where their knees really start having issues, and they start missing a lot of games or losing the chance to play some games. So I want to get your take on him, the thoughts of him coming out.
So the way I feel about this is bringing in Villanueva doesn't signal one way or the other that the Ravens are going to trade or not trade Orlando Brown Jr. this year. I don't think it has anything to do with that. Right now, when you look at the tackle depth on this team, you've got Ronnie Stanley, who's still banged up, and we're not 100% sure if he's going to be healthy. You got OBJ, who is obviously disgruntled, and we don't know how he's going to react to being here. And then behind him, the only other guy you've got is Tyree Phillips, as far as tackle depth goes.
Has struggles.
Right. I mean, DJ Fluker went out there a little bit last year, but he was terrible, and he just signed with the Miami Dolphins, so he's gone. You have no tackle depth. So Villanueva would be a great signing, even if the Ravens keep OBJ, because you need that depth. Now, Villanueva is still a capable starter, and there's plenty of positions out there for him to potentially be a starter. So if I'm Villanueva, am I coming into the Ravens situation as a swing tackle, as a backup tackle, not coming? So his interest in the Ravens signals to me that maybe there's more to this Orlando Brown situation, and maybe a deal is happening. The rumor started up again today. I saw on social media that the Vikings and the Ravens are talking even hotter and hotter now as we get closer to the draft about a trade.
Something with bleeding purple. Like we just keep talking every year.
Listen, we've pulled some
we pulled some rabbits out of the hat for sure,
and we've done that to the Vikings. We all remember the Vedvik. Yeah, who was just drafted in like the CFL expansion draft or some bullshit. I don't even know. We got rid of him for what, a 5th round pick?
Yeah. And it turned into Calais Campbell.
Exactly. Yeah. So, listen, any deal that the Vikings want to talk to us about, I'm all ears for it. We can rob them again. Let's do it. So, yeah, I mean, I think this Villanueva signing or potential signing would make a lot of sense for the Ravens with or without Orlando Brown Jr. in the fold this year.
I think if it's doing one of two things. It's either throwing off the scent of the idea of us drafting, right, or they are bringing somebody in and they're still going to draft because they're going to turn around and say, okay, we've got this guy drafted. Now we can get rid of OBJ, get some draft picks stockpiled for next year, and now you got Villanueva that he can sit behind and actually get, it could be a shared snap situation. Villanueva still wants to play ball, right? If he wants to play ball on a competitive team, and hell, if he wants to come over and give us some schemes, what the hell is going on in the Steelers?
I'll take it. 100% sure. So our boy Garnett brings up a great point. Says Villanueva would be a perfect transitional tackle piece for a future talent tackle.
Exactly what I was just saying.
So yes, if you are going to be trading Orlando Brown Jr. and you need that stopgap, that bridge feeler for a potential, let's just say you don't take a tackle in the first round of the draft. You get a tackle in the second or third round with a guy that you don't want to throw right into the fire year one as a rookie. Villanueva makes a lot of sense, a good piece to bring in and learn behind and have them, transition next year.
Yeah, I mean, imagine being able to learn from Villanueva and Ronnie Stanley.
Right.
I mean, and if Stanley goes down, now you're a starter. Stanley can't start. Now you got your starter on the left side until he comes back. And be able to shift a guy left around. We can go a bunch of different ways with a situation like that.
I'm excited, man. It's again, the NFL draft is like a holiday around here. We're 9 days away. Like we said earlier in the show, if you weren't tuned in at that point, next week's show, not on Tuesday. We are going live Thursday for the NFL draft. Draft edition. We'll go live 7:30 as normal. Draft starts at 8 o'clock. And we're here until the first round ends, whether the Ravens pick in the first round or not. Let's hope they pick, and let's hope they pick multiple times if they trade Orlando Brown.
If we have time, maybe I'll figure out a way to we'll get a timer going in the background. We'll get a buzzer going. We'll get it figured out. We'll figure something out.
All right, Ryan, it's time for a social media shout out. Who's been out in the chat room tonight?
All right, we got Dominic Henson, Andrew Sakura, Steph Summers, Buffalo Chuck, Carlozo, Craig Zero, Sharing Sherry, Garnett West, Steven Sievers, Smoke Break Chat, Lamar's daddy, as we talked about earlier, signed Sammy Watkins. I'm not really sure who that is, but that's a new name out there. I'm sure it's just somebody named it. And the name of the night, artist version, One Fingered My Ass. I hope this is not a new thing that people are doing to me that makes me read it. But Fred said, read everybody's name. There it is.
Hey, somebody cut that clip. Save it for the future.
We are an uncensored show. Any good comments out there, things that maybe we didn't bring up?
Joseph Labrie says, Pittsburgh's been a wide receiver factory because they had a Hall of Fame QB for 15 years. It's true, whether we like it or not.
I agree.
Made a lot of it.
I think, a lot of the success with the wide receivers in Pittsburgh has to do with the system and has to do with the Hall of Fame quarterback. 100% agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, and Brown is a difference maker, but all their other wide receivers were not as good when they went elsewhere, and I don't think Juju would have been anything if he went elsewhere. I wish we would have got to see that.
Agreed.
Another thing we got, Mr. Garnett West says Orlando is out the door. We're going to get 2 first-round picks, hopefully. Woo! I don't know if he's saying 2 for him or just we're going to have 2 because we traded one for him.
If you're saying a 2022 and a 2023, maybe.
Garnett, yeah, that's true.
You ain't getting 2 for next year.
I don't see us getting 2 first.
We keep ours and we gain one.
That could be very well the
2 first. He's gone.
That's the possibility I see. I think the Vikings have the 13th pick in the draft. If I'm not mistaken,
sounds like Kyle Pitts.
That would be really nice.
But see, you could take that 13th and get into that upper echelon.
There have been some other scenarios out there that I've heard around the Vikings where we get the 13th, we get their second round, and we get a 4th round, and then we give them our 27th. So we move up 14 spots in the first round, but then we gain a second and a 4th as well. I kind of like that because we get a better prospect, a guaranteed plug-and-play guy at 13. 27 in the draft is like kind of that spot where you're not guaranteed a starter day one. 13, you're guaranteed a starter day one. And again, if you're trading Orlando Brown, you're going to need that starter day one. And it's got to be, in my opinion, it's got to be one of the best offensive tackles in the draft.
So here's the other thing I need you to think about. What are we good at doing? Turning around draft picks. What does Eric DeCosta want to do over the next 2 years? He wants to have 20 picks over the next 2 years.
Right.
You could see him very well if that were to happen. Now they've got leverage with anybody to be able to say, okay, what are you going to give me for this 13th pick?
Right.
Give me something. If you get somebody that's back in the 28, 29 mark.
Here's the other thing. If you get that move, right, and you get the 13th pick, your 27th is gone, and you get down to that 27 to 30 range, and there's somebody on your board that you really want for 5 years, then you package that second and 4th that you just got to go back into the first round, and now you've got your 2 first-round picks potentially.
Hey Fred, you don't think, because they tried to do it last year, that Orlando Brown goes there and they send Thielen this way too?
There has been some rumors about Thielen. I haven't heard anything in a while. When this whole thing first started about the Orlando Brown situation and everybody pegged the Vikings to Orlando Brown because they have obvious needs at offensive tackle, Thielen's name was thrown around. The problem with Thielen is the contract situation, especially in the immediate. Long term, I think it's after
I got it up here.
The second or third year, the dead money is not
it's
bad
the second
at all.
year.
Okay. It's not bad. It's just how would it affect the cap this year? And I think that contract would put us over the cap. So you'd have to rob Peter to pay Paul or figure out some other extensions to make it work under the cap number. That's my only concern with that.
Yeah.
All right.
Any other comments or anything?
I think that's good. Carlos wants to know when he's going to come back.
Carlos, the door is open anytime for you, my friend.
I already told him August. I go on vacation again in August.
Lamar's daddy says we're going to be big hits in the later rounds this year. So
we always usually do good in the later rounds, so we'll see what happens. All right, Scott, it's time for some bros, bows, and O's.
Yeah, so I hear the Orioles are up tonight. Obviously, we talked about it. Santander apparently went down with bad ankle injury. We did see a little bit of the video. Don't know how bad it is. Looked a little rough. He had to be helped off the field, so he couldn't even walk on it. So you worry that that's a little bit more than just a basic sprain.
Yeah.
When the guy doesn't seem to like he can put a lot of pressure on it.
Yeah.
So a little worry there. We'll see what comes out of that. Knock on wood. Hopefully nothing's
I
crazy.
have sprained my ankle more times than I can probably count. So it's not fun, especially if it's a severe or high ankle sprain. They can last a while.
Steven Seaver says he can give us his own footage of the injury. Apparently, he's got some pretty good seats there.
Oh, wow.
There we go. All right.
So let me ask you this real quick, right? So the Orioles right now, I think going in tonight, they're what, 7-9?
Yeah.
What, 16 games of the season?
Yeah. Tied for third with Toronto.
Okay. So 7-9 in the season. Are you surprised right now by where this team is, or is this kind of like where you expected them to be the entire time?
I think it's a little bit of a loaded question. And when I say that, like, I think the pitching, we all saw like there were some good prospects in the pitching.
Right.
I don't think any of us thought Harvey would be what he is. He's not great, but he's not horrible either.
Yeah.
Right. Dean Kramer, I know we're going to talk about him in a minute, has been a surprise. Lopez has been up and down. John Means is a goddamn workhorse.
Yeah, he is.
And Zimmerman's looked pretty good for the most part.
Yeah.
So that was my one thing that I was okay with. My question mark was the hitting, right? And the fact that, we lost some of our guys that were really productive
some of our
last
bigger
year.
Power numbers we lost.
Yeah.
But we were gaining back a guy in Trey Mancini that we didn't have last year, which so far to start the year looks like Trey's pressing a little bit at the plate.
Gotta hope
it's got to get that hand-eye coordination back, man. Missing an entire year and then going through what he went through would take anybody some time to get back.
So I mean, I'm not. I guess when I say I'm surprised, but I'm not. Like I'm actually surprised that they're this close to 500 ball. I was anticipating worse with what we've kind of gotten rid of or given up, allowed to go elsewhere, and then what we brought on to kind of fill the gaps. And the fill the gaps have been okay. Nothing's been stellar, which it is what it is. But the other side to this is, AL East this year sucks. The Yankees suck. The Rays are like
the Yankees. The Yankees are awful.
5-10, I think, at this point.
At least if we're going to be awful, we're not paying to be awful. Like the Yankees are paying out the ass to be terrible right now.
Yeah, I mean they've struggled.
They're so bad. Jay Bruce was like, "Fuck it, I'm done."
Yeah, he said he quit.
I'm done. I'm retiring. I'm out.
But yeah, no, I mean just the AL East in general has been rough. So I mean the 500 piece, that's where most of our games have been thus far. So it hasn't been a true test. Boston, the fact that we took Boston in that first series was like, okay. And especially the way the Boston has been playing recently. They got us in the second series. The next series will be the test of, can we bounce back against them and have another winning series against Boston? If we do, I'll be surprised. I'll be happy with the way that this has been panning out so far.
Drew, what's your take on the team so far? 7-9. Is this kind of where you expected them to be?
I would say, yeah, actually.
If we're just looking at records, 7-9, I think all of us expected them to be right
take
around
something
there.
like that.
But overall,
yeah, I say it doesn't really shock me because, granted, I was away, so I didn't really see how these games played out. But they did lose 3 or 4 to the Mariners, and maybe in retrospect, before going into the series, you would have probably thought, granted, it's only one game, but 2-2, they would split or whatever. But you would think lesser of the Mariners, and they have a good record so far. But no, it doesn't really shock me at all. I think more what shocked me is how they're doing it.
Right.
Because pitching's been probably better than the hitting.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we would all agree that.
Right.
And then, like, John Means, we'll bring him up soon enough. But just seeing what John Means has done, I was lucky to make it home in time for the game on Sunday. And I watched the whole game on Sunday, and it was just like, I had, like, stars in my eyes watching this guy play. I'm like, that's what we saw in 2019.
Yeah, I mean, let's dive right into it then with John Means. John Means, in 3 road starts so far, allowed 1 run, 18 strikeouts, and 18 2/3 innings. I mean, he's looked great so far. I liked John Means from the moment that he got up here. And I thought he had potential for like the middle of the rotation kind of guy, like that number 3 or number 4 type starter. But right now, the way he's playing, he 100% could be an ace for this team for the next couple years if he can stay this consistent.
He's just showing you last year was a flaw with everything that went on with COVID, his father, everything that happened last year.
Yeah.
It just goes to show you, some people, I saw somebody, I put it in our outline, I forget who it was. Somebody said, he went from bad to great. And I went, bad to great? Guy was in the running 2 years ago for Rookie of the Year. He had an off year with everything that happened. How can you say he was bad last year?
Right.
That's someone that isn't paying attention. You had spring training start and then COVID. Mm-hmm. Then when the season finally gets underway, he had a family issue, and some pitchers aren't going to ramp back up right away like you would think of it from a normal season. So you have so many factors. The way he finished off last season, though, was what you saw in 2019 and what you're seeing now.
Right.
So to me, that's just uninformed right there.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And you were the one that brought up the road record that he's got so far this year.
Yeah, I mean, overall, like I said, I mentioned the road record thing. Overall, though, through 4 games, he's 1-0, 1.52 ERA, 23 strikeouts in 23 and 2/3 innings with a .93 whip. That's ace numbers.
That's Cy Young numbers.
That's ace numbers 100%. And, it got me to thinking, right, because of the situation that the Orioles are in, I started thinking, like, God, I wonder if the Orioles would consider trading him, because obviously they're not ready to compete right now and they're trying to build for the future and all that stuff. And as I'm thinking that, I'm scrolling through Twitter, and one of the guys from Pressbox, Matt Kremnitzer, put up a good tweet, and I wanted to bring this up and get your guys' opinion. If you can get a Bedard type of haul for Means, do you do it? And what I mean by Bedard, if you remember, for you Oriole fans out there that have been around for a while, the Orioles, and this was Andy McPhail, right? This was his going away present. Before Duquette, right? Andy McPhail, talk about fleecing a team, right? Pulls this deal to send Eric Bedard and all the head issues and everything that he was to Seattle. And in return, you get Adam Jones, Chris Tillman, George Sherrill, who George Sherrill was an all-star closer at the time. Mm-hmm. At the time, right? Yeah. Adam Jones was a prospect. Chris Tillman was a prospect. For those that don't remember the deal. And there was another guy, Drew, you brought up to me prior to the show that I completely forgot about.
Yeah, so it was funny. It's Cam Michelio, because no one's going to remember him.
I know the name, but completely forgot he was in this deal.
That's the period of baseball where it was like me and my friend were like, everything, you talk about bleeding orange, that's bleeding orange back then.
Right.
So anyway, it was Cam Michelio. There's nothing really special about him. He didn't do shit here. But he's 6'9", so it was like, oh, you see this like freak of nature type guy. But they traded him and David Hernandez, which was also a starter in the vein of like Tommy Hunter, where he's like, okay, he's okay, but once they went to the bullpen in Arizona, he was good.
Right.
So they traded him and Michelio to Arizona for Mark Reynolds.
Right.
And Mark Reynolds was real instrumental in those early, the 2012, 2013
The Sheriff,
years.
man.
Yeah.
I loved it. I loved it. But even with that, that was kind of like you didn't expect it thing, and that was the long-term effects of that trade, right? But just the immediate impact. You had a top-rated player in Adam Jones coming in who had just kind of cracked the surface at the major league level and showed that he could play. You had Chris Tillman, who was one of their top-rated pitching prospects in the minors, who was still, working his way up through the system. My question is, if you can get that kind of haul right now, I see Chuck out there, no way, don't trade anything to do with Means right now. But if you could get that kind of haul again, are you open to that?
So here's the deal. The numbers are similar. You go back and you look at Bedard's numbers in his first 3 years. You had the same very similar up and down. First year looked great. Second year was a little bit less. Third year got even better. Mm-hmm. It means you're seeing that same type of pattern. The difference is what you alluded to. I don't see any head case issues with John Means.
John Means is about as likable a guy as there could be.
Exactly. And Bedard, we knew, was having some head issues. Now, whether that was as a result of our pitching woes all throughout, right? We had Arrieta that we thought was the same thing. Oh, he's a head issue. He's a head issue. He goes to Chicago. He gets his head on, and then his head falls off again. But
I knew a girl that dated him while he was here in Baltimore and said he was a fucking total prick.
Who,
Like
Arrieta?
Eric Bedard.
Bedard. No,
Okay.
he's a notable prick.
Yeah, he's a total prick. So it wasn't just what you saw in the media. He was a dick.
He was no Sidney Ponson.
No, Sidney Ponson. Buddy of mine drank with him at a bar down Canton.
That's
So
the first mistake he made.
Yeah,
Drinking
exactly.
with Sidney Ponson. But no, look, I don't know because if you're doing that, you have to convince me that you see our pitcher of the future, our ace of the future in this staff somewhere. And we haven't seen D.L. Hall yet. We've seen a little bit of Kramer.
Grayson Rodriguez, still got to see him.
Grayson Rodriguez, you got to see. I haven't seen these guys at the major league level yet. I don't know that there's enough to warrant me saying we have our ace of the future. Now, that ace of the future doesn't need to be here tomorrow, but they need to be here in the next 2 years.
Right.
They need to be up and productive. They need to have a John Means year number 1 that he had.
Right.
I don't know that that's there. I just haven't seen enough. As much as I love what you just brought up, and I'm looking, I'm going, that value for those 3 guys brought us.
It was
some
unreal.
It brought us some
Remember
good
when
haul.
we got screwed over in the whole Glenn Davis deal? This like made up for that.
But it made up for it, but because Bedard's head issues continued in Seattle.
Right.
What my fear would be is you let John Means go, and John Means becomes a multi-Cy Young Award winner. I'm not saying he is going.
You set the bar real high.
I'm not saying he's going to do that, right?
It's 420.
Lay off the weed.
But we let Arrieta go, and what happened? He ran. He was in the running for the Cy Young.
You're 100% right.
Right.
So that's because they let him throw the cutter.
Right. But I don't know where John Means' next development is. I need to see it. I want to see it, and that's my hesitation. I'm listening. You have my attention, but I'm not pulling the trigger at the snap of a finger.
You need the cherry on top of that fucking sundae, huh?
I need the cherry.
You need that cherry.
I need the cherry.
It's kind of a couple things with Means. What we're talking about now too is it's not really likely you're going to get a huge haul yet. He's doing pretty damn good,
right?
But he's also got a lot of arbitration left too,
right?
Like he's got 3 years left of arbitration, not included this year,
right?
So he won't be unrestricted free agent until 2024.
So team control,
but a team that's a contender is going to be willing to want that.
And I get that, but it's very few and far between. Blake Snell's the only kind of real recent one in my mind that has like a 2 or 3 years of arbitration.
Yeah. Right.
They got traded, but that's kind of like the Rays MO.
I was going to say, yeah.
So it's my response would be it's twofold. Yes, if you got a major haul before July, and it could happen because it's happened with Snell in recent memory, then that would be amazing and just about jump at almost any mind blowing thing. But then it also goes with wait a year or two. A year or two, he could be even better. Or it could be
drive his price up.
Or, I mean, negatively, it could go down, sure. But I'm choosing to be
it's like the
positive.
stock market. You got to sell at its peak, though, right?
I'm choosing to be real
So you sold Dodge today?
Fuck. Stop reminding me of that.
I'm sorry, you sold Dodge last night?
No, I bought more or less.
Yeah, he literally called me, and I'm like, be sure. This doesn't sound like something I would do.
But I was to the moon. They were so sure.
Only go when Elon says.
Yeah. Barely I wasn't following close enough. But all right, so staying with the pitching staff and going on the other end, right? Another guy younger guy, we mentioned him, that the Orioles consider as part of the future, a guy that we got back. I think he came in the Machado trade, right? Dean Kramer?
No, Britton.
Zach Britton trade. You're right. That's right. So Dean Kramer gets optioned to the alternative site. Now, they don't really need a fifth starter with 2 off days, yesterday and Thursday. So there's that. This could be just they don't need him, so let's get another bullpen arm up there. The bullpens have been a little taxed lately. But, the thing that I've saw so far from Dean Kramer is inconsistency. When he's on, he's electric. He's got good stuff. But when he's off, he's been off, and the numbers tell the story.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at his numbers, he went into Saturday with a 10.5 ERA.
Yeah.
10.5 through 3 starts. He goes 4 2/3 and winds up getting the ERA down to 6.75 by the end of the game. So, okay, it's getting a little bit better, but he only goes 4 2/3. His whip is just under 2. He's 1.88.
Yeah, that's gotta improve.
Yeah, it's bad. He's not. When I watch him pitch, He's not locating consistently.
That's his problem. Yep.
And one of the things that jumped off the screen at me watching that game, you seen what his breaking ball is coming in at?
It's high.
No.
Low?
His breaking ball is coming in at 72 to 75 on average.
That's good, though. That change in velocity is usually good.
But
usually benefits you.
Because he can't locate, he's either missing wide or it's breaking so slow, the hitters can read it.
Licking their chops.
And just, they're just like,
yeah.
And, they know they just sit back and wait on it, and it's coming.
I haven't noticed the velocity on the breaking ball stuff. I have noticed his velocity on his fastball has been good. It's been pretty consistent in the mid-90s there, which is good. Like I said, his stuff to me translates to Major League. But he's just got to get better with his command and his consistency.
It does. And honestly, where it jumped out to me wasn't actually early in the game. It was like midway through when he was at like 74 pitches. I knew he was in the 70s.
Right.
And I saw 75 come up on the screen. I was like, he's throwing 75 pitches already? I thought he was down like low 60s, something like that. And then the next pitch, he throws a breaking ball again, and it said 72. I went, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
That's not good. Like, you can't be throwing a breaking ball that slow. If you're throwing a breaking ball that slow, it better have a lot of fucking movement on it. And his isn't. It doesn't. It's not breaking 12-6 and dropping off the table 2.5 feet. It's coming in with slight break, maybe moving 6-8 inches at a time. That's easy for a hitter to follow. I mean, I think, honestly, and you and I have experience in hitting pitches like that, right? I think you and I could hit Dean Kramer right now with this breaking ball. Sit back, wait for the breaking ball. You know it's coming, and it's going to be one of two things. It's either going to be every breaking ball he throws, it's either out on the edge or it's right down the middle.
I'm almost 40 now, Scott. These eyes don't work as good as they once did.
I definitely can't hit his pitches. I'm just gonna put that out.
They're both wearing glasses right now.
Yeah, exactly. So
I've worn glasses since I was 12 for my defense, all right?
My thing with this, though, with Dean Kramer is I really hope that it's literally just to get through these bye week or these bye couple off days, and they bring him back up, because ideally this is what I wanted to see from day one. Is I want this kid to learn on the job, take his lumps, don't give up on the kid, don't discourage. I think sending him down sends the wrong message.
Yeah,
I understand, the production isn't there, the ERA is bad. That's fine. Nobody in this organization has expectations to win anyway, right? I think it's more beneficial for him to learn at the major league level against the best of the best out there, take his lumps, and he'll improve.
Well, and to your point, the whole idea of it being for the off days, right? Part of what they do with this move is, and they didn't do it immediately, which was interesting. Usually you get these corresponding immediate they announce it at the same time. They actually waited about 25 to 30 minutes before they actually announced it that Cole Sulser was actually going to be recalled.
Right.
So
that's the bullpen.
That's the bullpen arm getting you through the week.
Last year's closer of the year for a month.
Yeah, right. Out of the 2-month season.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's definitely something that's interesting, and I'm going to keep an eye on it as we continue to go.
So speaking of going up and going down, casting couch, both of you guys are on the spot. I want to get your take on this. When is the right time for Adley Rutschman to make his debut? Because I'm right at this point, I'm done with Severino. He's absolutely awful to watch defensively. He's fucking terrible. You talk about getting out there and being able to hit Dean Kramer. I could get out there today and be a better defensive catcher than Severino. Severino is awful.
Your old knees can handle that?
Maybe for an inning or two. The way I feel after I landscape this weekend, the back of my legs are killing me, so I definitely couldn't do a 9-inning game. But either way, defensively, Severino's terrible. Cisco hasn't panned out like we all expected him to be. I think he's kind of niched his way into a backup role at best if he's going to be at the major league level. When's the right time for Adley to come up?
My response would be, I think the only problem is if...
Fuck service time. I don't want to hear about it.
No.
Okay.
You haven't had regular minor league games yet. Whereas normally minor league games would be starting now. I think that's the only thing that's kind of would slow them down on bringing Rutschman up.
So you don't think the service time or starting his clock or any of that?
I'm not saying that doesn't, because I'm sorry, every team does that. We granted that Seattle Mariners executive
Live
said
mic.
it. Live mic. The other stuff he said wasn't what everyone's thinking, but a lot of those
Right.
GMs are thinking, but if I can start this guy in September, it's the service clock doesn't start. I'm not saying that doesn't factor in, but I would say like maybe if minor league games start on time, you could see Rutschman up here by June 1st because he in theory, he would show off what exactly you expect out of him, and he looks great for a month and a half. Okay. But right now, you got that alternate site. I don't think now is the time, but I'm completely with you. The catchers you have are fucking horrible.
I said this from the day he was drafted. Literally day one when he was drafted, he was the best defensive catcher in the organization. Day one. Yeah. Day one. Now granted, I know last year he didn't get to play, other than the alternative spot and all that stuff, and he's, playing behind and all that. I get that. But he's, even today, not having any, minor league games yet, comes in tomorrow and he starts catching. He's a better defensive. Forget offensive. Offensive, he's going to be better, but defensively, he's light years above both of them. James, what's your opinion?
I don't think so.
What? Get out of here. And we're going off of James. No.
I'm just saying, save him down there till August. There's no reason to bring him up.
What was it James just told me? Get off the weed.
There's no reason to bring him up. Let him be with the young pitchers that he's going to see maybe next year, 2 years from now, 3 years. Get a feel for them. Be there. But there's no reason to bring him up. We're not expected to win anything. Let him be with his pitchers that he's going to see for the next 2-3 years.
I get it. I'm playing both sides of the fence here.
It is. I'm with Drew. Let him go down there. Let him get some hitting out because spring training wasn't the best for him.
Right.
He had decent, but it wasn't the best. Let him go down there.
I think he tried too hard.
Yeah, I think he was trying to make the roster and knew that he wasn't. Let him go down there, work with the pitchers, and just go August. Let him come up.
Scott, what's your take?
So for the first time in a while, I'm right there with you.
Okay.
I think he needs to come up today. It brings you no value to do anything. It actually does your pitchers a disservice with the way Severino's playing behind the plate. He can't call a game worth shit. You can't even trust Severino to call pitches. That's where we are with Severino. He can't call pitches. So you've got to get to that point where you can have a guy behind the plate that you can trust. And Adley Rutschman, I get what you guys are saying, and I get what you're saying of developing. And that's in an ideal scenario. We're not in an ideal scenario. Adley Rutschman can come up and be a major league player. Let his bat develop up here. That's fine. I'm fine with that. I think his bat can be major league ready. I think he just needs to sit back, relax, and get that debut under his belt. And this kid's going to start showing what he can do.
The traditional catcher, right? When you think of traditional catchers, they're not like 300 hitters. There's few in history that are like the exception, that are like the 300 hitters. Yeah. Most catchers are that 220 to like 250 range hitters wise. Adley Rutschman can come up here and be a 220 to 250 hitter right now.
Yeah, he could come up here and be Mauer.
Could.
Because that's who he's being compared to, and Mauer is the guy that was hitting like 300.
Last time we compared somebody to Mauer, that didn't work out.
Yeah,
quite
stop that.
Great.
Let's not do that again.
I think we put undue expectations on Weeders.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ryan.
All right, my one Oriole take of the year.
Here we go. This ought to be great.
Yeah, right?
Record.
But we went to the Adley Rutschman opening weekend at Aberdeen. Like, it was a big deal. They sold out every game for like 4 or 5 days in a row. It was like this awesome fan experience. Orioles aren't cashing in that cash cow until they can put more people in that stadium.
That's a good
now,
point.
They're not going to have a full stadium this year, but I'd be willing to bet you're going to at least double the number of people that are in that stadium this summer. So they're definitely not bringing them up until at least that happens.
Scott, that's a pretty damn good rebuttal, I'll be honest with you.
God damn it, that was a good
I don't know baseball, but I know money.
Credit where credit is due. Great point.
I'll give you credit on that. But what you can't afford.
Because you've always been like last year. We got that whole fucking debate about the World Series and money and all that stuff. So you've always been about like revenue and the importance of revenues to teams, especially to a team like us. That's a great point.
Yeah, but if you're only allowed to seat 11,000 fans and you're only pulling in 6. Adley Rutschman can pull in that other 6 for you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but if you have 24,000, you're going to get 18 to 20,000 with Adley Rutschman there. I don't.
If you have a productive situation, yes. Are people going to come in for that initial? Yes, they're going to come in for that quick wave.
I'll be there.
But you want you're the exception to the rule. We've talked about
And
this.
to his point, it's going to be a quick wave. You're not going to
it's
go
not-
there
it's
for
not gonna
weeks.
last forever.
You're going to go there for that
yeah.
cash cow for like the first week that he's there.
Right.
Yeah.
And cash in on that now, because if you cash on that now, people start seeing it. They start seeing, oh wow, this is great. You're allowing him to do it. I think you make. I'm going to give you that. You make a great point with that, and I do talk about that revenue, but I also talk about you need to put a competitive team on the field. I look at it right now, and we're above average, so maybe we're the problem. But I look at it right now and say, I know 5 guys that don't have a job that could go out and do a better job, in my opinion, than Severino.
Jake
and him.
Taylor could come out of retirement.
I tell you one.
Anybody?
I tell you one.
Even
Yes.
Tom
yes.
Merrigan.
Yes.
There it is.
I'll throw a name out there.
70.
I'll throw a name out there. My wife's probably gonna get real excited upstairs.
Oh God.
Matt Wieters. Matt Wieters has no job right now. He's a free agent.
Yeah.
You know he can come in to call a game.
But that's the
They're not
point.
gonna pay
They're not
him.
they're not going to pay anybody to come in. They're going to keep it
nobody's
internal.
paying him right now, so nobody's saying you don't just offer him
He
something.
probably wants good money, but Rushman will be up when they have his bobblehead
He was in
night.
St. Louis catching behind Yachty. He's not looking for money right now. He wants to
think
get on a
they-
roster. No, he wants. When you wait 2 years, he was behind Yachty for 2 years. Yachty's not going anywhere. Yachty just caught his 2,000th career
he got
game.
easy
You didn't want to
money
sign
to sit
Puig
there.
last year because it did make benefit to the team, and they were spending unnecessary money. But now you want to sign Matt Wieters for
make the wife
unnecessarily.
I'm not
Happy
saying
wife,
it's
happy
unnecessary.
Make the
life.
wife happy.
No, if you can,
I can watch more baseball. Hey, hon, he's behind the plate tonight.
if you can sign Wieters to the same type of $1 or $2 million deal that you signed to some of these pitchers like Felix Hernandez and Matt Harvey to originally, why would you not
Scott,
do that to have a veteran behind the plate?
You're not arguing a point that I don't agree with. Like if we could just tomorrow swap out Severino for Matt Wieters, I'm 100% on board with that. The Orioles just aren't going to do it.
So I knew Brady Anderson was a heartthrob. I did not know Matt Wieters was. Chuck's wife's out here going Wheaties too. Apparently, all the wives like Matt Wieters. Who knew?
No, but listen, Adley
It's
Rutschman.
a gap in the teeth.
Hold on, I just heard that they're bringing Nick Markakis back too to play right while Santander's.
You can't say nobody in this room are you going to argue that Matt Wieters would not be an upgrade defensively?
100% he would be.
Okay,
He'd be an
that's my
upgrade
point, is
offensively and defensively.
If he's coming in and he's paying $2 million, I don't know. You could look up the salary. I guarantee you what you're paying Severino is probably close to it.
But the point is that the money is guaranteed in baseball, right? So if you cut Severino, you're still paying Severino's contract, right? And the Orioles right now are trimming fat everywhere they can get it. I mean, they're cutting out, pizza
enough.
joints, and they're cutting out all kinds of stuff to try to
World's
save
worst
money.
But
announcers.
Cisco's not. Cisco is just on. You could send Cisco back down if you wanted to.
No, I get that.
He's not out of options.
I get that. I understand that. I just think that
Let Cisco
I don't
fall in
see
Rule
the
5
Orioles doing
category.
that. The Orioles are going to keep who they've got on the roster. My whole point in this was Adley Rutschman, in my opinion, gives you a better opportunity to growing at the major league level than he does at an alternative camp doing BP.
My whole point is, if you're not going to bring him up, you got to do something else because what you have isn't working. You're
I don't
distrusting
disagree
your
with that.
pitchers.
Scott,
Your pitchers.
You gotta remember, Matt Wieters is 34 years old. His agent is Scott Boras.
Oh.
He's not gonna get more.
Scott Boras needs that 0.5%.
He's gonna need like a $2 million contract,
Two-
which it's not.
Which
gonna
is
be worth
what
it.
I just said.
It's not worth
So,
it. It's
so
not
let me
worth
let me
it.
flip the script on somebody else then, right?
To
So
win what? 5 extra games?
hang on a second. Let me flip the script on somebody else then, because I agree with you.
Okay.
I'm unhappy with Severino specifically. I brought this question up, right?
Severino and Cisco.
Right.
Both.
I agree with you. Ryan Mountcastle has looked like total shit
Because
in
he's
right
not a
field.
left fielder. He's
Or
not a left fielder.
Right. So
You didn't draft him as a left fielder.
okay.
You didn't like him at third base,
Because
and
he was
you got
terrible at third base.
and
in
you
the
got
minors.
a backlog at first base.
Right. So
What are you going to do with him?
are you going to go out and sign a veteran to bring in and replace Ryan Mountcastle in left field?
That's a poor comparison because your veteran left fielder isn't the guy that's calling the game for your pitchers. There's a difference here. Come on. You as a catcher have to understand and know that.
I understand the importance of that, and that's why I want...
If you're talking center fielder, I'm having a little bit different conversation. He's your outfield general.
That's why I want Adley here, because Adley is going to be a part of the future. Matt Wieters is not.
I'm saying, I'm not disagreeing with you. What I'm saying is, if you're not going to do one, you have to do the other. I'm not saying call him up over Adley. If Adley I'd rather Adley here. But if you're worried about service time, if you don't want to bring him up for whatever reason, you need to do something. And if you're not planning on bringing him up, my fear, I get what you guys are saying. Let him hit for a month and a half. I don't think Adley Rutschman is coming up until September. I truly think they're worried about service time.
And they very well could be.
And going forward with that. I just don't know that this team can sustain Chance Sisco and Severino platooning behind the plate and not having the ability to call a game.
I got you. Well, switching topics, right? So some major league news came across the wire recently as well. I wanted you to talk about.
Yeah. So with this, one of the things that comes down from, and I'm interested to get people's takes because I want to know if you're happy, sad, confused, annoyed. MLB announced they have made the decision. It is final in agreement with the MLBPA. They are testing in the Atlantic League, the minors. They are testing moving the mound back 1 foot from 60 feet 6 inches to 61 feet 6 inches. How do you feel? What are your thoughts? You have a problem with it? Do you like it? Do you hate it?
I just don't know how much of an impact 1 foot makes. You know what I mean? I know that everything from the batter's perspective is split-second decisions and, the difference between, where your bat comes through the zone at, a particular time and giving yourself that much more of a – I just don't know statistically how much of a difference that makes. The traditionalist side of me hates it. I hate the little tweaks like that. Like moving the bases 90 feet to 95 feet, that would be stupid in my opinion. Moving the mound back 1 foot is stupid. I'm not even a fan of this whole extra inning thing that they're doing with a runner starting on second base because that feels like men's softball to me. You know what I mean? Like that's not what baseball was built. I understand they're trying to do things to like speed the game up, but I don't know. This is something I'm glad if they're going to do it. They're just not doing it at the major league level and just saying, here we are. We're going to see how we do, just like they did last year, that they're testing it in the minor leagues and they're testing it in the Atlantic League to see what kind of impact it's going to have.
Drew, James, Ryan, anybody?
MLB continues to shoot themselves in the foot. You want to experiment with this. I don't see the difference. If anything, it helps, to me, in my opinion, it helps the pitchers out because it gives an extra foot of movement on a slider, on a curveball, or any breaking ball.
But you're lowering that velocity on that fastball. You're giving greater time to actually react to that.
I don't think
that's the statistic I don't know how to measure. How much does a foot really impact it?
Well, and the other
because when you're talking about when you're little league, right? I think you go from 45 feet to 60 feet. When it's
45 to 54. I think it's 45 to 54 to 60.
Okay, that's 6, 9. That's big jumps. A foot. I just don't know how much that affects it.
I agree with you. The only thing that I look at, and it's part of what a lot of these guys do. What is it? It's muscle memory, right? Mm-hmm. At a foot difference, your release point is different, period.
Yeah.
No ifs, ands, buts.
I agree with that, yes.
So now you're having to get different release points. My thing is by a dramatic jump of a foot. If you were doing it, if you said like an inch or 2 inches a year for over the next several years, right? And I hope that's what actually comes out of this is they say, look, a foot was too much. We're going to ease it back. My fear is you get this happening. Some of these balls that are coming inside and just barely they're getting guys on the hands. Now they're hitting guys because your release point is different. You have a foot further to release it. So you have to either overshoot it, which means more wild pitches, or you're releasing a little too early, which winds up having more guys get hit. I'm not saying that's I don't know the statistics behind it, to your point.
Yeah.
In my head, these are all the things that could very easily go wrong.
I understand the muscle memory part of it, but I think us as humans adapt to change pretty quickly that I don't think a foot, again, my comparison going from league to league when you're in Little League, that 6 foot or 9 foot jump from league to league, that's a big adjustment. I remember when I was in 11-12s, I was because I threw hard. I was blowing kids away. Nobody could touch it. When I went up to the next age group, when I went to 60 feet, 6 inches,
tagged.
it took me a while. I had to adjust because these guys were actually hitting things that I was throwing. And it took me a little bit. And that was me at a little league, and I was 15 or 13 years old. These guys are major league pitchers. I think a foot's not going to make much of a difference. I really don't. I don't think it's going to make much of a difference in velocity. I don't think it's going to make much of a difference in reaction time. Again, it's a foot. It's 12 inches.
What's the point?
Yeah, it is. But again, it's muscle memory that these guys have been doing since they were 13 years old. They were developing since they were 13
I get
years
that.
old.
I understand
Right?
that.
So if you're a 23-year-old just coming into the league, you've been spending 10 years to prepare for this. And now here you are having to come out and throw from a foot difference with a different release point.
Drew, final
I
thought.
was just, I don't know if you two can answer. What difference does a 1 foot make? What does that really make?
That's what I'm saying.
Like, what are you doing? What are you doing it for? Because that's where I go where I said.
So you didn't hear why they said they were doing it?
Explain it to me because I don't know.
They think it's going to bring more offense into the game.
Okay.
Because it's going to slow down that fastball that we were talking about.
Again,
It also was about response time of the pitcher on comebackers and batters for
Safety.
safety.
again
as well.
where I go MLB.
Yeah, that's a bullshit
MLB
statement.
shoots
But-
themselves in the foot. A lot of what a less diehard fan would think is let's make the game funner or better to make me more interested. What does 1 extra foot on a pitcher's mound actually do? So you want to worry about that, but then you don't want to keep the DH for both leagues,
Or
and
you
make
don't
it
want to
right.
have, or you don't want to hold umpires accountable for actually
Don't
getting the
wanna
calls
hold-
right.
You want to confuse fans that well, what's the fucking point of replay if you can't even get that right?
Right.
The stupid shit like that you and the overtime, the extra innings rule.
Yeah, I hate
it's
it.
so fucking stupid.
I hate it. I hate it.
I don't.
I don't mind it. I like it.
It's
I won't
stupid.
be up all
You're
night
not
watching
making the
fucking
game any better.
And I think to your point, James, is they're doing that to cater to that audience
Yeah.
because they want to speed the games up and because that's the biggest knock on baseball. When you ask anybody who's not the diehard fan like you and I are, most fans just say the games are too boring and the games last too
There's
long.
no reason to have that one Phillies game. It lasted the next fucking day.
Let me right. But so to kind of to the point. So you talked about it earlier. How do you speed up a game very easily? How do they speed up the game in softball? What do you start with? Usually start with a
Don't
1-1.
start that shit.
Don't
either.
do
That's
that.
what I exactly equate with that extra.
That's
fucking
why.
butter.
That's exactly why I said it's like men's softball.
But that's what my point is it's catering to what you guys are saying. I'm agreeing with you. Is that when you're doing that stuff, they're trying to speed up the game. Well, then why don't you just start with a guy on first every inning then?
And there you go. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't make the fifth inning any better than the 10th.
Right,
Scott,
exactly.
just to let you know, they play fucking 9 innings. If you can't score more than fucking 2 runs in 9 innings, you shouldn't be fucking playing baseball anyways. So put the extra guy.
Pitcher's duel.
I'm just
Sunday
saying,
was
you
amazing
guys are.
pitcher's duel.
Yeah.
I understand that, but if you can't score fucking runs, it doesn't need to be playing 20 innings and get players can get hurt. Pitchers are being used. Get it over with. Get the game fucking over with.
The other side to this too is that particular rule, as far as starting a runner on second base, is that favors the National League. Because the National League teams are built to play small ball baseball, and they're used to playing small ball baseball. It's all they've ever played without the DH, right? The American League doesn't play that kind of ball. So if they're going to carry these rules through the playoffs into a World Series, advantage National League.
I love it.
Unless you get rid of the DH.
Right, yeah. I'm just saying, as they are right now.
Yeah.
I like it. I'm not up all night. I know I'm not going to be up all night watching fucking baseball.
As Dave, my uncle, said, there is one part of what he said. He says lower the mound, which I don't know how much that's doing either, but outlaw the shift.
I'm
I agree. Outlaw the shift.
for outlawing the shift.
Me too.
Or limiting it.
You want to bring offense
you're
back
allowed,
to the
like,
baseball?
so many shifts a game.
Yes. You
No,
want to bring
screw that. I'm a traditionalist. If you can't cover your position, you shouldn't be in the major leagues.
Right.
Period. There are diagrams out there. I have them for coaching. That you're a second baseman. Here is your coverage area. You overlap with the right fielder. He should be able to cover this area.
Scott, you're old.
Area.
They have analytics now. They look down.
Yeah,
the
this
hat
was
like
analytics
this.
at a time too.
Really bad ones.
Yeah.
But your uncle's got another good point here. If they want to cut the commercials between innings, they would shorten the game too. They need to go to the NFL type commercials where you're watching the game and the commercials at the same damn time. They could keep the same amount of revenue and shorten it up.
They've tried to shorten that up because now there's the whole clock that they monitor, right? I think when the inning ends, 2-minute clock to get out there, get warmed up, and get started. And they get as many commercials in that time that they possibly can. So they have kind of done that over the last couple of years. shortening that to a minute 30. I don't know how much difference that really makes.
It's funny
in
that
entire
clock
game.
that clock technically means nothing because I can't tell you how many times I've sat there and watched an umpire go, hold on. Okay, go ahead. Because they're waiting to get the buzz that all right, now we can go. We're off. TV's off. So.
All right, Scott, it's time for this week's Liquor Stop Brew of the Week. And what did Jerry and the crew hook us up with this week?
So I actually finished mine. Fred did not like this because it's sour, and if you watch the show, you know Fred.
Why I'm drinking my natural way.
Fred is sour himself, so sour and sour don't go together.
The bottle is gone.
The bottle is gone. It's his Brooklyn Bel Air sour. There you go. It is their key lime version. It starts with a nice tart, like not necessarily nice tart sour note, but it is a little bit sour, and then it gets a little bit of a sweetness to the finish. I don't mind it. I finished mine. I don't hate sours like you do.
You don't want my opinion.
So,
I thought I hated sours, but I actually kind of liked this one by the time I finished it.
right, exactly. I finished it, and it was like, okay, wow, I finished that. I didn't realize I drank that much. Drew, what did you think of it?
I like sours. I don't think it's very good at all.
No,
I don't even think it's.
There's
like
nothing
I drank
key
4
lime
sips and
about
I
it
stopped.
other than the label.
It feels like real.
Does it taste like
watered
key
down.
lime to
I mean,
you?
I taste the
I'll say
lime. I don't
it's
taste
more
the key.
girly drink than a sour to me. That's why I can handle it and like it more than
It's
a sour.
not bad.
Sours just aren't my thing. This isn't me trying to rip it or anything. Sours just are not my thing.
no,
Sours are mine, and I'm just like, nah, I'm good.
So make
that's
sure you
Drew
guys
ripping it, not me.
head out to Liquor Stop, 1510 Conowingo Road. Make sure you let them know that Birdland BS sent you. Get your 10% off. They got tons of stuff out there. I actually also picked up some Pink Whitney upstairs that I forgot to bring down here. So we gotta break that down here again.
All right, sounds good. All right, Ryan, it's time for some Shell and Tell. And we had talked yesterday about, I don't even know if we're going to do a Shell and Tell segment this week.
I looked at the notes yesterday, and I was like, what the hell are they talking about? And I looked at the notes right before the show and went, whoa, shit.
Well,
I literally
today
was
was
like, Fred, I'm
eventful.
going to take a break. I'm going to skip this week. We don't need a Shell and Tell.
partly because we have been so busy with Shell and Tell. We've had a lot going on this past week, and partly because there really wasn't a whole lot of news going on, but things changed in the last 24 hours.
Yeah, in the last 24 hours, we'll skip ahead to basketball because that's what broke. This is what I wrote last night, right? With Terps basketball, hoping no news is good news because all is quiet on the hardwood.
And it changed today.
Well, at 3 p.m., that all fell to shit.
Yep.
So at 3 p.m., we had a decommitment and a commitment, all in the matter of about 30 seconds announced.
Yeah. Boston College forward Jarius Hamilton, who transferred to us last year, has now entered the portal. And he'll be looking for a home somewhere else.
Yep, 3 schools in 3 years.
Yeah, it was kind of a head.
The future of basketball, I guess.
It was kind of a head scratcher for about 30 seconds until I saw the following post where we did get the new commitment.
Yeah, our newest commitment is Ian Martinez, 6'3", 183-pound freshman. Played all 25 games at Utah last season. Only averaged 16 minutes, 5.2 points, 49.5% shooting though, and 32% from beyond the arc. So. When I saw those numbers, I got a little worried, actually. I was different than you. I was like, oh, shit, are we trying to replace Eric?
Yeah, no.
That was my very first thought. But then I looked back and I kind of realized that because I thought that we had already replaced Smart with the last guard commitment. But what really happened is we should have got a guard last offseason and didn't.
Right.
So the very first guard commitment, Fats Russell, was the guard we were supposed to already have.
Right.
And this was Anquan Smart's replacement.
So
it's
exactly
the same graduating year and everything.
That's exactly right. He's Anquan Smart's replacement, who was projected to get some good playing time this year. If you want a comparison for you older Terp fans out there, he's a combo guard, kind of like Drew Nicholas was back in the day. If you remember Drew Nicholas, I see a lot of potential in this guy. Some people are saying he's got some good pro prospects, so that speaks volumes to him. The numbers, again, as a freshman, don't blow you out of the waters when you just look at his averages. Like Ryan said, 5.2 points at 49.5% shooting, which is good. But what you look at is what he did in the last, I want to say it was 10 games of the season.
He was a freshman. He developed.
Yeah. The last 7 games, 7 out of the last 10 games, I think it was, he averaged between 10 to 15 points in those games.
So his career high came in one of his very last games. It was a double overtime loss to USC in the Pac-12 tournament quarterfinals.
Right.
So in the March tournaments, he had 18 points on 7 for 10 shooting in 30 minutes.
Right. So that's pretty good. Again, this gives you that combo guard that primarily going to be a 2-guard, but he does have the ability to handle the ball, so he can play the 1 when needed. Somebody gets into foul trouble, or you're just trying to keep guys fresh. That was our problem this season, was that we had too short of a rotation and that people were getting gassed, especially as we got halfway, 3/4 of the way through the season. Guys just didn't have the energy to keep it up, and this is going to add depth to that.
And this is the new basketball. You've got to keep your scholarships right. So if you have people leaving in their after their freshman, after their sophomore, after their junior year, you got to at some point try to get somebody back in that kind of class so that you can keep the record going for the high school guys. You always have spots open to draft them.
Or you end up giving a scholarship away to a guy like Reese Mona.
Well, yeah, or you. That's exactly last year. We could not find a point guard that wanted to come here, and they're like, all right, well, who deserves it the most? Who works the hardest? Reese, here you go.
Exactly. And on the Jarius Hamilton side, Hamilton was a little bit of a disappointment in the sense that I had high expectations for him more as a forward. More as maybe like that slashing 3 or a guy that was going to have a low post presence. Didn't really turn out to be that way. He was more of a spot shooter, took more threes than I expected. Wasn't a big rebounder. So, listen, I wish nothing but the best for Jarius Hamilton, but I think this is an upgrade for the squad.
Yeah, I mean, and especially if you're going with Anquan Smart as his replacement, it's definitely an upgrade. You're talking about the number 120 overall in the player of the nation for the 2020 class. That was the composite ranking, and the number 19 shooting guard. Some places had him as high as number 67 player in high school. So definitely was ranked high beforehand. He chose Utah over Arizona, Arizona State, Ole Miss, and others. So it's not like this is just some guy we're picking up. Even though he only scored 5 points a game, this guy could develop into a real player here.
Right. All right, so let's switch over to the football side of things. As we mentioned, it's been a crazy whirlwind of a week for us. I mean, I know you put out the Marty McNair interview that you did with him.
Jordan McNair Foundation, yep.
Yeah, we just wrapped up an interview yesterday with Terps punter Anthony Pecorella, which was great. A lot of good conversation on many things. We started a new segment with Shell and Tell called the Player Spotlight, where essentially what we're going to do is all the player interviews is give you a inside look to what these players and what these athletes bring, not just on the field, but off the field as well.
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of established at this point. At first, we were like getting a player interview and going, oh my God, this is the best thing that's ever going to happen.
Right.
And then we got another one and another one. We're like, all right, well, we should probably pretend this is going to happen again and break this off so that people can go back and see this and not just find out what the stats were last night.
Exactly. Well, I'm excited, man. It's we got the spring game coming up this Saturday. As we talked about last week, they are going to allow fans into the stands. We're not going to be tailgating out there. Maybe we'll tailgate in the driveway, or at least I'll tailgate in the driveway. You can drive and be the DD.
Fred and I aren't even going to get to sit together. I just figured out. So they're pods of 4, and my wife and twins are planning on coming. So Fred going to be sitting 4 rows behind me, yelling at me.
We're big enough that we'll still be able to high five and shit. That's fine.
I was going to say, hey, I'll bring me and the kids will come. That way we'll entertain you.
There it is. I like it.
I might be able to make it.
All right. We'll make it a
40% chance of rain. I'm really, really sad. I'm going to be there whether it's pouring torrential downpours, but we'll have to see how that goes.
Well, we had talked about, one of the things that we wanted to see the fans do was get out there and show support. I know you watched the Alabama spring game the other day, and just the level of fan support that they have. I mean, granted, it's Alabama, right? It's the number 1 program in all the nation. They're going to have that kind of support. But for us, as far as showing support for the program, you got to get out there and you got to be there, right? Well, the Terps announced that all the spring tickets are gone. That's great.
All the spring tickets are gone, but we are talking about PG County and D.C., and they were free, so we'll see. I don't know if we just had scalpers buying hundreds at a time, and or if people were like, let's get them in case we want to go. So if 5,000 people show up, which is the number of tickets they let go, then I'll be pretty happy with it. And I think that's probably about double of the number of people we saw at the last spring game 2 years ago. But I think that you could drive that kind of interest because we all missed an entire season.
Are they doing school on campus this year?
Yeah, they're on campus.
I wonder how many students you're going to have there just to get out of the dorms.
0.
You think zero? Okay.
That student section.
I'm throwing it out there.
I mean, of course, there's going to be a few students. I mean, Ahmed Gafir, who's now working with Shell and Tell, is technically a student. He's in his master program. He'll be there.
Right.
It's not like it should be zero. I mean,
You'll be able to count them.
Yeah, I talked to Ellis McKinney.
On one hand or
he's
two.
Be there for this
Maybe
game.
hands
So,
and feet.
but yeah, I don't know, but active undergrad students. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I see 1,000 of them sitting out there getting a nice suntan. But
I just figured maybe they want to get out
in the fan base.
Right. Well, I wanted to get your take, and Scott, I want your take on this too. So with the spring game coming up and some of the question marks and some of the things, the changes that we've made around this squad, what's an area, Ryan, that you're looking forward to seeing at the spring game the most?
I think the biggest thing is what we've always been lacking. It's the offensive line. We're starting to get numbers that look like we have a Big Ten offensive line. So I want to see it in action.
Right.
We got big boys across the board. Of course, we're still out there looking in that transfer portal to get another tackle, maybe guard, depending on how that works out. But we have large bodies we've brought in over the years that are getting training. Plus, you got the new offensive line coach. So I'm really looking forward to seeing him like in the moment interact with these guys. They get pulled out, coaching them up for what they did wrong and see how that works.
Well, since you stole mine, I'm going to let you steal the thunder here, Scott. What is your most exciting thing for the spring game?
I look at the defensive side of the ball.
Okay.
Right? There were too many games last year that they just could not handle the other side. Northwestern game being one of them.
Right.
So I'm really curious to see. We thought that Chance Campbell was that leader on that defensive side of the ball.
We didn't think he was.
He definitely was. And one of the things that I think you got to play. Your buddy Ruben. Can he step up this year?
Looks like it.
Can he make an impact?
I heard him speak in an interview in his press conference for the first time the other day. Another well-spoken kid, knows his shit.
And he admits that last year he didn't know, and that's what held him back.
Yeah,
he
right. Very
said,
candid.
I was playing fast, but I didn't grasp it. I didn't understand where I was supposed to be. I've always been able to just do this because I'm better than everyone.
Right.
And so and we've talked to a couple people that said he really started to put it together right the last game about last year and has even developed more through the offseason.
Right. So he's not just saying he's slowing down; he's actually doing it. Right. So yeah, that's the side of the ball that I'm most curious on because look, I know that you guys talk about the offensive side, and we need to. Defensive side is going to be a question mark to me this year. There are some question marks with not having a leader. If it is Ruben, great. What does our secondary look like?
Great. That was what I was just going to bring up. So that's the only thing I'm most confident. Well, no, I'm sorry. Wide receivers is the thing I'm most confident in, except for the fact that we only have one quarterback. So Talia has to stay healthy for me to be confident in them.
Right.
The defensive backs are going to be good no matter what. You got Nick Cross very well. This could be his last season here. He could be an NFL draft pick next year. Let's see how that works out. Last year, didn't quite shine as much as his freshman year, but I think it was just that weird.
He didn't get much help from some of the DBs that were out there.
Well, you had Trebe Still, who was the best freshman I've ever seen come through there. So that's a big thing. Jacorian Bennett's on the other side.
Played great.
Our defensive backs is probably overall, it's the best I've seen. We've had plenty of NFL caliber defensive backs play through there, but it's always been like one at a time.
Well, before you guys steal all the position groups, and I don't have anything left to talk about, I'm not going to take the Ahmed easy cop out and go wide receivers.
Oh.
I'm going to go with a position that's near and dear to my heart, position that I played, tight end. And the reason I say that is because tight end was an area of dire need last year, an area that we were super thin, that we had defensive linemen switching over to tight end to just fill a role. Like, we were all over the place, tight end position. We get Chigakonkwo back from injury last year, which all reports that you're hearing right now is that he's looked great so far in camp. That adds a whole other dimension, I think, to this offense, having a true – and he's a two-way tight end. He's a good blocking tight end. He's a good receiving tight end. Having him out there, we've got a cluster of young freshman tight ends coming in this year, one of which, baby Gronk, CJ Dupree, kid who's bench pressing buses and squatting houses. This kid looks like the real deal athletically. I haven't seen him on the football field other than what I've seen as far as like his high school tape and all that. And it's looked great. But I'm excited to see him. Corey Dutches, another guy. He's a little small, I think, for the position, but hearing great things from Ahmed. his athleticism and his ability to go up and get the 50-50 balls, his strength could put him into the two tight end sets with Chig and not rush CJ Dupree out on the field too soon. So I think the tight end position group is going to be interesting to watch, not just in the spring game, I think all year.
And let's not gloss over Chig. I mean, we were very excited for what he could bring last year, and then he had cardiomyositis. Wow, of course I messed it up. Cardiomyositis related to COVID last year and ended up missing the whole year. He's supposedly in good shape. He's got it under control out there on the field. So I hope that he can not miss a beat and be out there with the boys. And really, they seem really excited that extra wrinkle because we had no tight end.
That's what I'm saying.
Year.
Zero.
Nothing. We threw the ball to him 3 times. It bounced off like a brick house, and Locks was like, "Take all those plays out."
Think of how good that wide receiver core played last year without having that pass catching threat out there.
A guy over the middle that can,
all that's going to do is take some of the pressure and some of the double coverages off those elite wide receivers. Who everything again? I don't want to hop on the hype train with the wide receivers because it's ridiculous the amount of talent that they have there. But everything that we've heard about Dante Demas, when you just think like he can't get any better, he's gotten better. I mean, a lot of people said that he could potentially go pro last year. Thank God he didn't. Final ride here as a Terp, and I'm for it. Put him, that Batman and Robin out there with him and Rock, and then you've got so many other options. I mean, you could literally pick a rabbit out of the hat, a name out of the hat, and throw them out there, and all these wide receivers are going to be talented.
So,
and
question on that front for the two of you, right? Last year, one of the knocks, especially as we got later in the year, was that the Terps were becoming predictable on the deep ball. Do you think that addition and being able to have that solidified tight end type situation, do you think that opens up more deep balls and allows you to become less predictable with that, to be able to get those deep balls because the guy's open?
Because tight ends run a lot of underneath routes. They run a lot of things over the middle. So all that's going to do is pull some of the coverage into the middle of the field, which then will give you the top end of your defense.
Right.
So yes, I
where
think
these guys are burners,
100%.
at that point. So
yeah, I mean Dante Demas was pretty much their deep threat, but I mean you did have Deshaun Jones. Rack didn't really catch
Rack
deep balls.
just caught balls in space and then took it to the house.
5-yard slants, 80 yards at a time. That was just what he does.
He did it twice against Penn State. They look mirror images of each other.
It was the exact same play. It was back to back.
Yeah.
I'm just really happy that this year is so different. It's NFL draft week, right?
Yeah.
We were talking about maybe having one guy drafted.
Right.
This year, without even having a breakout of somebody unexpected, we are going to probably lose 3 underclassmen. Well, I guess Demas is not technically underclassmen, but Demas is getting drafted unless he just blows out both knees in some horrific accident.
You better knock on wood. She's just making the camera have a seizure.
They knew. We got Jalen Duncan who's leaving early.
Yeah.
And, I mean, everything Ahmed says, we better get used to this being his last year. He looks great. He's going to be drafted. And you got Nick Cross. And then looking a year ahead, you got Ruben, you got Still, you got people that are definitely considered right now. We didn't even think about Jake Funk last year.
Right.
He was a breakout that got there. So there was a little bit of talk about Shaq Barrett. Or not Shaq Barrett. He's great. Shaq for the guy that transferred from Clemson, but he ended up sitting out and not being anything.
Right.
But there was no talk of anybody else going to the league.
Yeah.
And here we are. There's definitely conversation. You see what Locks is doing with the caliber of players at this program.
Well, you bring up the Jake Funk, and if there's any question marks at any positions I'm going to be watching just to see how they're doing, it's going to be the running back core because there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of youth at that position. Obviously, you've got Tayon Fleet Davis, who's going to come back as the one senior back projected to be the day one starter. I've heard nothing but good things as far as him maturing from a mental standpoint. We talked about this on our last show for Shell and Tell, which is great. Great news for this kid because the one knock on him has never been athletics. It's never been his
really
talent
talented
on the football field. It's always just been what's between the ears and making poor decisions off the field. But if he's got a grasp on that and he's really matured, like everything that we're hearing, that bodes well for that running back group.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And then you look at the young boys. You got Penny Boone, Isaiah Jacobs, trying to figure out if anybody grabs hold of a spot before we reload in fall, because we have 3 freshman running backs coming in, Antoine Littleton, Roman Henby, and McDonald all coming in here. You know, who knows what they're going to bring. Antoine Littleton's another big boy like Penny Boone. We're apparently trying this Thunder Lightning thing. So,
I like it. Hopefully, if any of you guys are going down there for the spring game, send us a message, send us an email, hit us up on social media, let us know. We'll try to meet up with as many people as we can down there. We'd love to say hi. All right, Scott, it's time for this week's rundown, and I'm going to let you kick this week's rundown off.
I was actually going to pass it off to somebody else, but all right, I'll take it.
Hey,
so
I'll take it. They just threw it to the
go ahead.
Alabama. We
There
already
you go.
talked about it.
There you go.
He tried
right.
to steal my thunder here. So Alabama.
Tell us
spring
about your
game.
son there, Ryan.
We're going to get to my son here soon. But the Alabama spring game happened to be a really good day at work. I was able to didn't have any patience, so I was able to watch the Alabama spring game. Thank you, VA. All right, so Alabama spring game, ESPN
Keep signing that paycheck.
live broadcast this spring game, and I know it happens. I've seen it before, but it's just one of those things that struck me. Like we always talk about, we can't get any TV coverage for the Terps. All these things that are like the weekly coach interviews at other squads, like Minnesota, that were all on TV when we were out there.
Right.
All that's just radio at best around here or being streamed. So the TV coverage of a spring game, then you have Alabama spring game attendance, advertises socially distanced. I don't know who's socially distanced in this. 47,218 fans. That makes it the largest sporting event since the pandemic started. That's right, not the Super Bowl, not the national championship game.
not the Texas game this past weekend.
Have the Terps ever had 47,000 fans at their stadium?
Yeah, most of them are visitors, but but yeah, I mean, I just can't believe it. Like to see the level, and it's just, please, can I get half that?
Yeah. Can I just get a piece?
Can I get a piece? Can I fill the lower bowl for a spring game one time? Come
man.
on, guys, we're falling behind.
So tell me about your son.
My son's coming up right here, Jai Hall. You're gonna know that name if you don't know it now. This dude is 6'3", 190 pounds. He was ranked the number 3 wide receiver and 44th overall player.
How old is your son?
17 years old.
Yikes.
He was still supposed to be in college playing in this spring game. I mean, in high school, I'm sorry. Still supposed to be in high school playing in this spring game. And he looked like the best player on the field on Alabama, who has the best players in the country. I mean, this guy had 4
Two
catches.
wide receivers projected to go in the top 15.
He only had 4 catches, but 72 yards. 2 of these catches complete highlight reels. His very first catch, he's completely draped because Alabama has great defensive players.
Right.
And he just whaps out one hand, just grabs this inch of
Whap.
a ball and pulls it in for the first catch. I'm already like, oh, who's this guy? Like one drive later, he's tiptoeing the sidelines on a first down catch right at the sticks. This dude is unbelievable. He's 17 years old. This guy is going to, Trevor Lawrence 3 years ago, we knew he was going to be the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah.
I'll put money right now. This is the number 1 drafted wide receiver 3 years from now. Right now.
Wow.
I'm locked.
I almost want to take that bet just for the sake of taking it.
I'll give you your 300 for the dog coin.
No. I can't waste another $300.
He's been burned once today.
No, I saw a couple of his highlights. The kid is a real deal. Again, doing it against Alabama defensive backs, these catches, unreal. Scott, what do you got?
I was going to pass it off to Drew here.
All right,
Just kinda
Drew.
I'm going to keep
just
it order
fuck
here.
it. Just, do whatever.
right.
Here we go. Put your mic down, Drew.
Let's bring hockey into this shit because we never talk about hockey ever. And I'm the resident hockey lover. San Jose Sharks Patrick Marleau just passed Gordie Howe. Gordie Howe is one of the greats of all time. He just passed Gordie Howe for the most game played with 1,768. Can you imagine that many games in hockey?
Jesus.
In hockey, where this guy's like,
brutal.
you get checked on the open
Concussions
ice
galore.
and never play ever again.
I can't do 5 hours of landscaping. This guy's playing that many hockey games.
At age 43.
Jeez.
41. He's had 1,596 with San Jose alone in 21 years. If he plays tomorrow night, he'll have 900 consecutive games. Think about hockey and think of a player playing 900 consecutive games.
Yeah.
So if he plays next year and he plays and he never stops playing, he'll own that record because I think the record's like 960 something. So if he plays next year, he'll break that record.
Break it, yeah.
Now, let me ask you this. Me not being a huge hockey fan, like I said, I'm kind of the casual hockey fan, if anything. I've never heard this guy's name before until recently. So is he just like one of those guys that just played a really long time but never really did a whole lot?
I'll say a little bit of this. It's I won't say it's not it's that, but he's also played in San Jose. It's a small market in
team.
California.
Makes sense.
Think of it. I mean, you're not really following a lot of West Coast teams in general, the lesser teams.
Right.
And they're like the Caps, where they're always in the playoffs, but they haven't gotten there. They made it to the Stanley Cup, and they lost.
I think he played for the Pittsburgh Penguins, too.
He played 21 years with San Jose, played 2 years with the Maple Leafs, and then he was traded to Pittsburgh last year in that little shortened season, but he only played 8 regular season games.
Buffalo Chuck, who I'm assuming would also watch hockey, stuck there in the ice tundra, says he played when he was in middle school.
Yeah, so there you go.
And he also said he's never had over 86 points in a season. So again, he's a guy that played a really long time, but just kind of flown under the radar.
Hockey too, though. There's so many great players that you don't think of as the Ovechkins or the Crosbys.
Right.
They're just great players that play the game properly.
Dale Hunter was one of those guys.
There you go. One last little stat that I found real interesting. So I got this on Saturday. So there's been 8,100 NHL players that ever play a game. And Patrick Marleau has played with 3,009 of them.
Wow.
So that's 37%.
Wow.
That's fucking interesting.
Like he's played,
That's
obviously
crazy.
not on the same. He's just played against them.
Against together. That's like combined.
He's been on the ice with them basically.
There you
at some
go.
point
Yeah,
during his career. Wow.
I'm sorry. That's just like I said, the resident hockey guy.
That's crazy.
So like I really started digesting a lot of the stats on and everything on Marleau the last couple of days. That's just amazing to see. Think of what? Oh, we're in awe of Cal Ripken here.
Right.
That's fucking baseball.
Right.
No one
You're
can
not-
just jump
A
over
low,
and kill you.
low contact, no contact sport.
Yeah,
Right.
You're not playing that shit on ice where you're basically playing football and lacrosse mixed with ice.
Yeah.
You know, with ice.
These are some of the toughest
Yeah.
MFers around.
They'll get stitches somewhere on their body in the first period.
It
and they're
happened
playing
to
in the second period.
Subban the other day.
Yes, exactly. Why? That's what I was just thinking.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Roll the dice. Is it
sorry.
James next?
Let's go, James.
All
Go
right,
ahead,
James. What do you got?
All right, the rich just keep on getting richer. Mark Lohr, who is the former CEO of Walmart, and Alex Rodriguez are going to purchase the Timberwolves for about $1.5 billion. It's going to get. It has to get approved by the NBA, but it will.
It seems like an emotional purchase for Alex Rodriguez after losing J-Lo.
Oh, he'll bounce back with another.
He gets dime pieces left and right. He's
trying to get some of that NBA ass.
But he lost J-Lo.
J-Lo was just getting too old for him. That's all it was.
She still looks damn good. I don't care how old
but,
she is.
He could probably be pulling these fucking 20-year-olds and shit. But yeah, so they're going to buy.
Who are you again? Are you a TikTok star?
Hey, he's got the money for it, but they're gonna buy the Timberwolves for $1.5 billion. So the owner of it now, Glenn Taylor, he bought the team in 1994 for $90 million. So
It's a little bit of a profit. Jesus.
and hopefully A-Rod can turn this team around because it's one of the loses franchise in pro sports. So and hopefully they can get Kevin Garnett's jersey retired.
I was just going to say that. Did he owe Kevin Garnett any money for developing that franchise $1 billion?
But his jersey has never been retired because
That's
they
a
have
shame.
beef with the owner, and now I'm hoping that when this gets done, that Kevin.
That's a shame. I mean, Kevin Garnett, hands down, top 50 player all
he's
time.
one of my favorite players.
Yeah, he 100%
He ain't
should
give
be.
a crap, dude.
Yeah.
Scott.
All right, now it's my turn. All right, I'll take it. Don't ever do that again. So if I told you guys that the Braves called up Sean Kazmir Jr., you might say, "Oh, okay, who he is? What kind of practice did he like?
Who dis?
Who is this guy? What's the story? Right?
Number. Who dis?
Well, he may be a junior, but he ain't no Griffey during the draft type junior.
All right.
He is 36 years old.
Young buck.
He's a young buck. Hasn't played in the majors since 2008.
Carry the one. Wow.
Right.
That's a long time ago.
Right? So this guy, he played in 19 games in 2008 for the Padres. Padres drafted him. 39 at-bats, 205 hitter, 5 walks, and 14 Ks in that. He was drafted originally by the Athletics in the 37th round in 2003. He didn't sign with them and winds up getting drafted by the Padres out of the College of Southern Nevada in the 5th round, and that was in 2004. So not bad for this guy to go from the 37th to the 5th. Right, exactly.
I was 4 years removed from high school.
So,
bastards.
You're old. So you're about the same age as
I was a
him.
millennial.
So 37th round to 5th round wound up being pretty good. Career 258 overall hitter, combining all of his stats at all levels. Finally gets called up. Just a journeyman, of baseball. We talk about journeyman of hockey. We got a journeyman of baseball here that's been around for a while. It just stuck at the grind. And really, when they were asked about it, he said, it's my love of the game.
Yeah.
Right. I never gave up on what I was doing, what I wanted to do. And even though he looked at it, one of the things that somebody said was that he helped develop, and he was there for some guys like the Acunas, like the Freemans.
This story reminds me, and I can't think of the guy's name. Wasn't there a pitcher that was like a science teacher?
Yeah, it was on Disney.
No, not on
That was
Disney.
called the
Rays.
The replacements.
For the Rays.
Yes, for the Rays.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
so
It's
what he's
on
talking about was
Disney.
based off of.
Oh, okay. They made a movie out of it.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
The movie The Rookie is based off the true story of the pitcher who was a science teacher.
In Texas.
Wound up hurting himself in Texas. He wound up hurting himself. Didn't wind up making it all the way. Became a teacher, and
It's
then
got that same
challenged
kind of
his kid.
vibe. I mean, obviously, this guy just didn't give
No,
up.
he just
But-
didn't give up. He's definitely was a journeyman of it. But I thought it was cool. This guy hasn't played in 13 years
He's
That's
fresh.
crazy.
in the major leagues, and here he is coming out, and they
Telling you.
said we're gonna bring him in.
Dave and Buster's told me I could do it. I'm telling you, coming back out, 39.
My God.
All right,
Moving
so
along. It's your turn now.
in probably one of the classiest players in NFL history, at least during my time. Alex Smith announced his retirement after 16 years in the NFL the other day. We obviously know this guy's story as far as the injury and coming back and all of that. But I mean, when you look at this guy's career, it started a little rough for him out in San Francisco. He got things together, started playing good football out there in San Francisco. Enter Colin Kaepernick. He gets passed along. Goes to the Chiefs. Helps really put the Chiefs organization back on the map. Chiefs hadn't been relevant in forever. Puts them back on the map. Then gets replaced by Patrick Mahomes. Passed along again. Then he goes to Washington, and we all know how that story ended. Not pretty. Probably had one of the most gruesome injuries in NFL history. Now, granted, Joe Theismann had a very similar injury, and it ended his career. Never came back. Alex Smith proved to everybody that he'd come back. Not just coming back, but he came back and played. When I started looking at some of his stats, right, he's actually only one of, 4 quarterbacks in NFL history with at least 4,000 passing yards, 25 passing touchdowns, and 5 or few interceptions in a season. One of 4 quarterbacks in NFL history to ever do that. So my question to you guys as a group, statistically, when you look at his total career, does his stats line up as a Hall of Famer? No. But everything that this guy went through in totality and the story that he tells and everything that he went through adversity-wise, the feel-good side of it for the NFL, does he get put into the Hall of Fame as almost like an exception?
An honorary type situation.
An exception, yes. I'm not saying he's a first-ballot Hall of Famer, but do you think the Hall of Fame comes knocking and says, listen, for everything that he did, how can you not have this story in our history, ingrained in our history at the Hall of Fame?
That's a negative Ghost Rider. He'd probably get in Utah where he was went to school, but not in the Hall of Fame.
Drew?
Does he have a Pro Bowl?
Yeah, he does.
Pro Bowl.
Yeah, he has
in.
a couple Pro Bowls.
He's fucking in because you want to start talking about Ryan Fitzpatrick being in the fucking Hall of Fame without a Pro Bowl.
Wait. You mean
Great
his replacement?
point.
Exactly, yeah. Without a Pro Bowl, then hell yeah. Because of the story alone, yeah. I'm not.
We got lots
we'll
of
go with
stories
the
in the
6th year.
NFL.
Yeah. What do you think, Scott?
Look, there's a lot of guys that maybe shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame because their numbers don't warrant it, but they got in after years of consideration in the players category, and I think it should be the NFL should do a nod when he is eligible. I think it should be something that they consider. But if he doesn't get in, I would fully expect that later on the players vote him in, that players panel votes him in after what's happened, after everything he does. He comes back, what he did in each one, and then just the comeback story.
Yeah.
I mean, it would honestly. So I hate the Steelers, but if Ryan Shazier would have come back from his, it was much more horrific.
Right.
But if he would have come back from that and played a snap, honorary type situation.
This is why they have Disney.
Ryan, what do you think?
First, I don't think Shazier's was much more horrific. Yes, he was paralyzed, but
the man had to learn how to walk again.
Yeah,
Yes.
well,
Alex Smith almost died.
And he
Not
was
just had
down
his
the-
leg cut off, he almost died.
It was died on the table multiple
Shazier ain't
times.
shit.
You had his wife and his agent screaming at doctors that they couldn't cut his leg off. He's like, they had saws on his leg, like waiting to cut it off.
Yeah.
They were just being threatened to be sued if they cut it off because that was the right medical decision. Would have been to remove.
So
his
Hall
leg.
of Fame or not?
No chance whatsoever. Bad stories don't keep players out of the Hall of Fame, and good stories aren't putting them in the Hall of Fame. They might take a leg brace of his and stick it in Canton and have a plaque, but he is not getting in the Hall of Fame.
Okay. All right, that's fair enough. So
I put that under like an honorary type situation.
I fall
The event, maybe, but he will not be a Hall of Famer.
I fall under the Deion Sanders like logic in the sense that I feel like too many players are getting in at this point, and it's just about anybody's getting in. And Alex Smith's story doesn't go
It's
away.
unique.
But
It
Deion's
doesn't
a
go
dick. He would
away.
say that about like Ray or something. He'd be like, he's not good enough yet.
No, my point is, this story doesn't go away, whether it's in the Hall of Fame or it's not, right?
Yeah.
And the reason I brought this up is because it was an interesting debate on social media, and I wanted to see how everybody in here thought about it, and it was mixed, just like it was on social media. I think the story is a great story. I think what will encapsulate it is whenever Disney or whoever comes out with the movie to kind of dictate the story, that will happen, and that will be enough enshrinement for him. He will be talked about for generations, especially,
Is Fred drunk? How many shots has Fred had? Just stop. Carlozo is not having this.
I did not promote it.
Not in the
I was
room anymore,
asking the
Carlozo.
question. I didn't say one way or the other. That's why I wanted to listen to what everybody else said.
Bring up Chuck's statement here. So, and I think this kind of goes. Alex Smith wasn't coming back for an honorary play. He came back to help take the effing dumpster fire to the division championship. That should make him a Hall of Fame candidate on principle, and I think that's what the whole point is.
Again, that's the story.
The storyline here
back
is
to get paid.
no. He came back because he wanted to prove to himself he could. If you go listen, if you
He
listen,
didn't have to prove. He had the
no,
leg. He got to keep his leg.
stop.
He
Go
was
listen.
He was not capable to play. That's why he didn't even play in the playoffs because they didn't want him to get hurt. Who's
He
the head
took
coach?
them
Doc
to the
Heineke?
playoffs.
No, who's the
Dwayne
head coach?
Haskins?
Who's the head coach?
But-
Ron Rivera.
He
Ron
didn't even
Rivera's
want him
come
on
out and
the
said he
fucking
didn't give a
team.
shit about him.
Yeah, he didn't even want him. He went there to get his fucking money. $17 million or get none. You're going there to get his fucking
I don't know.
money.
I
Then
don't
why-
agree with
then
I
that.
like the guy, but he had no business.
Then why
being
Alex-
on the
so
field.
if
Alex
that's true,
Smith-
if that's true, then why play him as much as
Alex,
you did?
Alex
Hey,
Smith
'cause
was a
they're
number.
bad.
Alex Smith was a number 1 overall draft pick in the NFL.
All up.
He made a shit ton of money in his entire career. I don't think that was the entire
That was the-
purpose of it.
that was
I
part
think
of it.
I'm not saying it wasn't part of it. Of course, you're not going
Go
to turn
back and
down
listen to
16
his.
million.
Go back and listen to his interviews about the guy that was happy to have his life that you're talking about. That he wanted to prove to himself that he could
I
come
agree
back
with it.
and put his body on the field and say everybody said he will never be back,
No
and
one-
he said to himself, "I'm going to put my
That
life
was the best
on the line."
That was the best division to play in because anywhere else he wouldn't be playing.
It doesn't
would've
matter.
died.
It's perfect, James. If you were in that situation,
I would
you would
play.
not. You would not. Oh my god!
But
Nobody in this room, I guarantee you, if we went
So-
through what Alex went through,
Dude,
nobody
the
in
head
this room.
coach didn't even
Can-
want
can
him
I
on the
finish
team.
my topic?
The
Go
head
ahead,
coach
go ahead.
didn't
Can
even
I
want him.
finish
ahead.
my topic?
Thankfully, we
this
left
is
this for
supposed to be
last.
the rundown.
thankfully it was
Have
last.
it.
But my
Thankfully,
point
Patrick
is,
Marleau didn't come after this.
my entire point in this conversation was the Hall of Fame, right? I don't believe he'll be in the Hall of Fame. And I do think the movie thing 100% will come and that'll enshrine him. But I think another way of the NFL recognizing Alex Smith would be to change the Comeback Player of the Year award title
To the Alex
to the
Smith
Alex
Award.
Smith Award.
I'm totally fine with that, and I think it might happen, but he's not getting in the Hall of Fame.
And that's my point. And I think that Alex Smith Award will tell the story enough. And that's how the NFL will get around putting an Alex Smith in the quote unquote.
And that's
Hall
fine.
of
Again,
Fame.
I said honorary type situation. My whole point with all of that, kind of wrapping it up, was the fact that nobody in this room could come back from what Alex did and go back to what Alex Smith was doing.
No,
That takes an above average human.
I agree with both of you in the sense that there was part the money thing, but he made a shit ton of money, so it wasn't all of it. And I 100% agree with you that the majority of it was proving to himself, proving to his family that he could come back from this.
If it was about money, he would be looking for a contract next year.
Last time I checked, they didn't give the Bo Jackson Award for Comeback Player of the Year.
No rules. No boundaries. 2 topics. 30 seconds each. It's time for the 2-minute warning.
Bo Jackson. Bo Jackson didn't even come back. What are we talking about
He
here?
came back in baseball.
And he was terrible.
He's better than Matt Wieters.
Oh, Jesus. Here we go. All right.
Can we get to the after hours already?
It's time for the 2-minute warning. Who's reading the first question?
I got it. I kind of want to change it to an Alex
I'll let you
Smith,
go first.
Ryan Fitzpatrick debate, but I won't. So what is worse, fair weather fans or inside baseball here?
I wonder where this question came from.
Yeah, stay tuned to the after hours. You're going to get
Yeah,
insight
let me
where this
start again.
question's come from.
What's worse, fair weather fans or fans who say that they're fans of numerous teams, like say, "Oh, I'm a Cowboys and a Pittsburgh and a Patriots fan." No, that shit.
So
TikTok.
I think the worst situation here is fair weather fans because you're donated to one, and you're saying, all right, I'm a fan of this team, but you don't support them throughout, right? The fans who are at different levels, I think those people are fans of the game, but maybe never they ranked onto one player or they ranked onto a few players on a certain team during a certain era. So I get it to an extent.
I can't stand either one. The Fairweather Ryans or the bandwagon fans of numerous teams. I can't stand either one. But if I had to pick one, I cannot stand the bandwagon fans that jump on the best teams every year. Yeah, I like the Yankees. Yeah, I like the Lakers. Yeah, I like the Cowboys in the 90s when they were relevant. I can't stand either one. So if I had to pick one, I would say the fans of numerous teams.
Would Ohio State and Maryland count?
What do you got, James?
Go.
Drew's got it.
Okay,
Go.
I got it. I guess I got it. What are your thoughts on that horrible Jake Paul beating UFC fighter Ben Askren with a TKO this weekend?
Exactly. You summed it up. Horrible for everybody that wants to give Jake Paul all the praise because he's doing so well. Look at who he's fought. Has he fought an actual boxer? No. Ben Askren is a UFC fighter who does best at grappling. For God's sakes, he's not a fighter. He's not a striker. This is not great. Jake Paul needs to fight a real fighter if you want to see something.
He won't.
This was a money haul for both of these guys, and that's all it was from the very beginning. It was a waste of time. Was it cool to see Jake Paul knock this UFC fighter out? I mean, it was kind of cool. He made him look fucking silly. He knocked his ass. It looked like Mike Tyson's knockout. Did you watch the video of it?
They put him up against Mike Tyson.
That's what it felt like to me. It felt more video game with it. It would be a great fight, and I'd pay to see that one.
100%.
Not pay to see this one.
No headgear, Mike Tyson, Jake Paul.
Drew, before I sign us out, Drew had one comment. Go ahead.
That was a fucking dive. The dude got paid $500K to get knocked out.
Yeah.
He didn't get knocked out. He did. That was all fixed, and it was all bullshit. And I'm with everything your response was, but there's no way he actually knocked him out because 20 minutes later, he was smiling his ass off because he knew he just got $500K.
100%.
Yeah, exactly.
He was hugging his girlfriend with
such a fucking
grin
joke.
ear to ear, man.
Let's go to dinner, baby.
That's right. All right, Scott, sign us out, man.
All right, we appreciate you guys tuning in each and every week here on Birdland BS. Make sure you check out our website, www.birdlandbs.com. While you're there, you can check out all of our episodes. You can learn about each of us. Check out the latest Shell and Tell podcasts. They are dumping these things like crazy. I think you've done what? You're going to do 3 in the next week, right?
I don't even know.
I don't know how many you're doing.
So much going on right now.
You guys are getting them out there. Make sure you also check out the gear page. Get yourself some Birdland BS gear. Also check us out, bigplay.com and birdlandsports.com.
Don't forget, next Thursday, draft special. So if you're going to watch the show, we won't be live on Tuesday. We're going live 7:30 on Thursday.
We'll put something out on Twitter to remind everybody of that. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Snapchat. At Birdland BS is how you find us. Make sure while you're there, if you want us to bring up a comment on the show or a topic on the show, you heard Craig Zeros earlier. Reminder, make sure that you'll let us know that on Birdland. Give us that topic. Tag us, tag myself, tag Fred. We'll bring it up on the show. And you can also use the hashtag #That'sBLBS. That's another way to get us. Make sure you also listen to the audio version of the podcast. Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcasts, we are there. And if we're not, let us know. We'll get there. Thanks for tuning in as always. We'll be back next week, not Tuesday night, as Fred just said. We'll be back next Thursday night for our draft special. However long it is, 3, 4, 5, 12 hours.
We'll
Who
be
knows?
here.
We'll be here.
Oh, God.
Work's going to suck on Friday.
I'm spending the night, Scott.
For Fred, Ryan, James, Drew, and myself, we'll see you guys.
See you. It's time for the after party.
It's last call for alcohol.
Smoke your weed if you got it.
Smoke the weed. That's a good show.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so I guess let's hop back onto this Alex Smith thing. How do you guys really feel about Alex Smith? Can't go to the Hall of Fame, huh? Apparently, the guys in the chat room, I think it's Joe Carloza, was blowing up on me. I didn't even go one way or the other yet, and Joe was like, "Oh my God, what are we doing here?" Why are we
That's our question.
By the time, if they're going to let all these people, they're going to have to get rid of the field and extend the facility at the Hall of Fame because it's not that big.
They're going to have an ultra Hall of Fame where we let the people that actually were supposed to be in.
Well,
and the girls' locker room, they're going to put
the
it in.
Domino's Sugar Warehouse blew up, so they got room down there.
Damn.
Too soon, Fred.
Too soon. Sorry.
Look at all that free Under Armour advertising on all
That's
the
probably
footage.
very insensitive, and I
sugar
apologize
down
to anybody that was affected by the Domino's
Someone
warehouse
smoking
blowing
the
up.
weed down there.
Under.
Mike, can't hear
Put
you.
your mic on.
I've been gone for a week. What happened?
No,
The
today.
Domino's
today.
sugar plant literally
Happened
blew up
today.
today.
Today?
Yeah.
I've been busy fucking day, all right?
It looked like it looked like a dome, like somebody took the air out of a dome. It looked so bizarre.
They looked flat. It was weird,
Yeah, it was really weird.
Should have fucked with
God
that
they
sign then, I guess.
Chuck's trying to look good, not putting this online, but I'm going to put him on blast.
Joe's called me out. He said, "Fred, you would not let me talk last week, so I had to comment." I got
So
you.
I'm going to put Chuck on
Okay.
blast. He said, why not move this pitching mound back to 69 feet even?
So Craig had a question here, so let's bring this up. What do you say? Question: if Eric DaCosta is lying about getting a prime wide receiver.
Why receiver?
You're talking
Say it like
I've
that.
never seen Fred.
talking like
Wide
Eric.
receiver.
Wow. Did I just have a stroke on air? Pretty sure I did.
Sound like Eric DaCosta over here.
I can't even finish reading it. You go ahead and read it, Scott.
DaCosta.
If Eric
Whoa.
DaCosta is lying about having a prime or getting a prime wide receiver,
No, it's wide receiver.
wide receiver,
the fish tank.
Is that gas leaking in here again? What's going on?
who are we getting and at what cost?
Man.
Well, I'd like to talk a little bit about that. You said you were going to get all our opinions on Eric DaCosta's comments about the fans. So my take on it is that fans in general are looking around the league and they're seeing that a lot of teams, it's a sped up process. It's no longer this baseball like 2-3 years till we see people. You're seeing a lot more rookies produce. You're seeing way more second year people produce, especially at the quarterback position. Quarterbacks used to be 3-4 years in the league. Now they're coming out starting week 1. So you
Agree with
look
that.
at the Justin Jeffersons of the world. You look at the Brandon Ayuk last year. Like there are rookie wide receivers, DK Metcalf the year before, that are putting up real numbers, and we're not seeing that here. Same thing with the Ravens. The Ravens were planning on sitting Lamar behind Joe. The only reason he played year one is because Joe got hurt. They were trying to do that old school thing where you're going to sit and you're going to learn and you're going to play.
Right.
So I think that the fans are just kind of getting sick of the old school version of that. But, what do we know? The Ravens are one of the best run organizations there is. The other people are just trying to catch up, so they got to play it a little bit differently.
And I think what you saw, I talked about how they offered the contract to Juju, they offered the contract to T.Y., and then they offered the contract to
Galladay. Or they were talking about Galladay and then
Sammy Watkins, right? That was desperation. And I think
they dodged some bullets there, too.
The Ravens need to understand what they're good at and what they're not good at, right? They're good at a whole lot of things, but one of those things they're not good at is drafting elite talent at the wide receiver position. Have they missed on all of their wide receivers? No. Hollywood Brown's a good, productive wide receiver. Is he where he was drafted? Maybe not yet. We'll see what happens there. But you are good at certain things. You are good at drafting DBs. You're good at drafting linebackers. You're good at drafting offensive linemen. So do those things. Pay for the things that you're not good at. And that's where I think the Ravens need to take the next step is, and I was hoping they would do that this year, but they just, because of the shortened salary cap, they didn't have enough money to sign the Kenny Galladays of the world. Had this not been a COVID year and this had been a normal cap season, they would have had the money to go after a Kenny Galladay. And I think what they showed going after Juju and T.Y., to me tells me they would have aggressively gone after a Galladay if they would have had the cap room to do it.
Yes, I think, but the factor in why they went after Juju so aggressively is you take away the top threat of your biggest rival, right? So
I don't even know if he's a top threat anymore.
I am so glad we didn't lane his ass.
I am too.
I am. But who else do they have at wide receiver right now? Exactly.
So you pay a guy $9 million to go.
I'm not
exactly
saying that.
What do they have?
Right.
No,
Same situation.
His production is not the same in this offense as it is.
No,
in
and
Pittsburgh
I agree with
because
you.
of the
I'm just saying
He would be a
there's
good
added.
blocker.
I think what they're thinking is there's added value to take him away from Pittsburgh.
I don't
agree with that.
I don't think that was in the equation. I really
never-
don't.
Okay.
Juju could have been a Steeler. He could have been a Seahawk. It wouldn't have mattered. They would have still gone after him based on his fit in this system to their need.
Okay.
I just think that, again, the Ravens need to admit where they're not good at, where their deficiencies are, and that is elite level wide receivers. So go pay for it, like the Bills did with Stephon Diggs, or if you hit big like the Packers have with Devontae Adams, pay that guy. Like, go out there and get yourself a legit number one receiver.
Like Arizona did.
Yeah.
Arizona, right. God, we could have had that. We could have had that in DeAndre Hopkins.
Peanuts.
Right, for peanuts. In comparison, exactly.
Yeah.
But it's this shortened season, unfortunately, that screwed us a little bit.
By the way, so I apparently at some point during the show, Steve Severs did actually send us. He is in the outfield. He sent us the video. I'm going to put it on there. I'll describe it for everybody. He sent the video. Just hit play there of Santander actually twisting the ankle, and he's not like super zoomed in. He's sitting out in right field, but you can see Santander go in, and you just see Santander flip and roll. And so from that shot, it looks like it's rough. I don't know that that's just that might be a high ankle sprain.
Yeah.
But I'd be worried that might be more just the way that he rolled it there.
Ankle sprains suck.
Yeah, that's that bigger bag
Terrible.
that they have at first base now.
So Craig Zero follows up. He said, a trade to get Devontae Adams? No, they're definitely. Oh, Parker. Oh, he's talking about
Parker down in Miami.
Miami. If they trade with Miami for Orlando Brown Jr., I could see a Parker and maybe a pick type of move happening with them. I really think the Ravens right now are. I mean, they're going to take the highest bidder for Orlando Brown, but I really think that their center focus right now is on the Vikings because they fleeced them in the past, and I think the Vikings are probably the most desperate to fill that tackle position, especially when you've dumped the money that you've dumped into their running back there. They need to get as much production from them as they can and protection for the quarterback.
I think this is going to be a great draft for the Ravens. I think we're going to see fireworks.
I hope so.
I sure as hell hope so.
I hope so.
Orioles dropped 7-5, by the way.
Okay, Drew.
Post-draft.
Yeah.
This would be a post-draft trade, and I'm throwing it out there because I don't even know if it would work with caps and other situations. But even though he signed his deal tender with the Chicago Bears, let's bring Allen Robinson back up post-draft because then you wouldn't lose draft picks from this year, it would be next year. Would you see them possibly like kind of going for him?
I mean,
if he would hold out with Chicago because maybe he doesn't really. Yeah, he's not a tender, but he doesn't want to be there.
That's that would be the ploy, is if Allen Robinson decides to hold out and holds the Bears hostage essentially at that point.
That's my point.
Then I think the Ravens might come calling. And it depends on do the numbers fit into the cap.
He signed his tender, but he could still hold out.
Yeah, he can still hold out. Any player can hold out.
Yeah.
My thing is, do the numbers work, right? And the Ravens, they have $6 million that they're going to have to pay in cap money to these rookies, right? They always like to have $5 or $6 million of a cushion going into the season because of injuries and free agents that they might have to sign during the season. So they still have to have $5 or $6 million. So I know we could look at the numbers and be like, oh, well, they've got enough room to make the deal happen. You never go down to the penny until you're like week 12, week 13, week 14, when you filled the roster with those, because it's inevitable. We're going to lose some defensive linemen to injury. We're going to lose DBs to injury. We're going to lose players all over the field. It happens every year. And the Ravens are always good at finding those dumpster dives like LJ Ford a couple years ago, right? Those guys, and you got to have the money to be able to bring those guys in to replace them. So as much as I like that idea, I just don't see it being
I
realistic.
just had to throw it out there.
No, I like the idea. I love Allen Robinson's fit in this system.
me too.
Not just his production of what he did in Chicago and what he did in Jacksonville. I just think he'd be a great receiver in this system.
You have to have a safety net for two reasons, right? Not only is it just the idea of if somebody goes down, but it's also the idea of what if you get to that trade down line and you truly feel like you're that one piece away, right? That you could. It's something over there.
Did you step on a frog? Oh,
Knuckles hit the desk. That's it.
You're that one piece away, but that one piece is going to cost you an extra $5 million on the rest of your salary cap, whatever it may be. That's your point. The point that I think you were trying to make is when you get that, you have to have that buffer for those two reasons. To me, it's the latter. I would rather them do that than do the dumpster dives.
Yeah.
I mean, the point of the dumpster dives, but I'd rather have proven a commodity. As much as I love LJ Ford, if they went out and
it's not even a matter of having it for the dumpster dives. It's a matter of having an insurance policy for the potential injuries, right? Like, there's no way to stockpile your practice squad with enough players to cover every position and enough players to protect. I mean, what was it, last year or the year before? We lost like 4 or 5 DBs in like the first couple of weeks, you know? There's no way you've got 5 DBs waiting in the wing on a practice squad that are already signed to your roster. So you've got to have that cushion to be able to go out and fill those holes if God forbid that happens.
Whether it's through trade or whatever. Yeah, it makes sense.
Go ahead, Drew.
Well, no, but my point. I guess my point would be, but you're at least spending that money on something that's worthwhile instead of holding on to that money then for those potential situations.
Right.
For the dumpster dive.
So there are situations where they'll hold on to that money, and if they've made it through the first 6-7 weeks of the season, haven't had any major catastrophes as far as injuries go, then they start looking at the trade deadline. Then they start making those deals. All right, we do have a little bit of room.
Right.
Who could we bring in at the trade deadline?
That one more piece kind of thing. That's what I was talking about. Yeah.
Who are these teams that are out of it that are looking to, free up some cap space or get a draft pick or whatever it is for next year? Then they'll start using that money on that. But knowing the Ravens' history, there's always injuries, and they're always, signing guys to come in and fill a need.
Yeah, and to your point, it's if you spend the money too early.
They did it with Petco a couple years ago.
Well, Fuller will still be healthy, so
we'll see.
If you spend the money too early,
drugs.
So Craig says, so if we get Bateman or Marshall, are we done at wide receiver?
Yep. This year, yes, 100%.
Because you're gonna have to pay them. They're gonna. It's first round money, right? Unless somehow they fall to the second round.
Well, the first round money doesn't matter whether it's wide receiver, it's tackle. It's going to be about the same dollar amount either way. But yes, I think personally, if they get one of those two guys, those guys are guys that can come in and make an immediate impact. And I think they're done for this year at wide receiver, and then they evaluate next year to see what they have. Because again, next year that cap is projected to go up significantly, so things are going to change. Now, granted, if they sign Lamar to this extension that we all expect them to, that's going to eat a big chunk of that.
Or Kyle Pitts. Let's talk into existence, people.
Yeah. They've got some big decisions to make. We obviously know that Orlando Brown Jr. is not going to be back now because he's going to be traded at some point, or we're going to get a comp pick for him. But then comes up Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews is the next big payday, too, next to Lamar. So the Ravens got some decisions to make. Obviously you've got on the defensive side of the ball, you got Brandon Williams, who we've been back and forth on. Do they extend him? Do they keep him around?
If you can get his replacement in this draft, he already took the pay cut for you. You got somebody that can sign behind him and provide you depth, but also learn from him at the same time. We talked about this last week with Cole. I mean, it's something that absolutely can happen. I think we need to kind of put it out there. Right. Before we kind of wrap up, I did want to, because we alluded to it in the 2-minute warning, we got to let Drew explain where the fair weather fan question comes from. I'm putting you on the spot. Well, I said we were going to do it.
I'll put me on the spot, even though the argument was kind of between Fred and Ryan while I was taking dinner.
Kind of, it was.
It definitely was. Inside baseball on this, we were talking. Maybe we kind of labeled Ryan as the fair weather Orioles fan.
You don't have to label me. I know.
Our fanhoods.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I don't know why Scott put it up to me to bring up.
You were the one that asked the question, so that's why you're the one that came up with it.
There's 5 of us in this room. We cover 3 major brands of sport, and our fanhoods vary as far as our dedication to each one of these teams, right? Ryan, obviously the hardcore Terp fan, right? Not so much baseball fan. He's made that pretty apparent. I'm pretty consistent across all 3 sports. Obviously, Ravens is number 1 for me, right?
Yeah.
But I would say the Orioles and the Terps are a close 2A and 2B. Like, I follow both of them, I would think, equally. I would say you're probably Orioles 1, Ravens 2,
and
Terps 3.
I will say, up until like last year, more so a Terps fair weather fan. I will 100% admit that. I was more of because you guys know I actually follow the Gators more than I do the Terps.
Right.
So for me, it's just whatever. Anyway, I was following before Tim Tebow was around. But for me, I started getting into it more, right? To learn more about the show, learn more about what you guys were talking about it. So I feel like I've increased it, but it's still very, very clear to me, Orioles, Ravens, Terps.
Well, this conversation started because I consider Ryan more of a fair weather Oriole fan. He considers himself a little bit more than a fair weather Oriole fan. Maybe not to the level of me or Scott, he'll admit that. But I think he's more of a fair weather fan because he only goes out to the games when the Orioles are competitive. His expectation is, let's be in at least the hunt for the wild card. That was your word to me. Let's be in the hunt for the wild card.
I'm not even calling for August here, people. Just July.
Okay. But my point in this is that you follow the Terps and have followed the Terps for however long it's been, however long you've been a season ticket holder now. I can't remember the number. Win, lose, or draw, doesn't matter, right? And you harp on fans not supporting the program. You want fans to be out there and supporting the program because you don't like those fair weather fans that only show up when they're winning. That was my point in calling you a fair weather fan, is because you do exactly what you don't like with the Terps, is you only show up to the Orioles if they're winning, if the tickets are free, or if they got firework night.
Here's my thing. I maybe have to check what I've said, but I don't believe that I've really gotten on that many fair weather Terp fans, because I understand that they're going to be lower. There are going to be less people going to Terp games because there's so much to do in the D.C. area. I'm more mad at the students. Well, the students is ridiculous because you're there, it's free. You already came to the game, but you just disappear. That's different than a fair weather fan. I mean, what are you knew we weren't winning this game when you came out to the Ohio State game. Why are you disappearing in the first quarter? But my more thing is the fans that are just angry all the time. The fans that are like, fire Loxley. What's Loxley done that we need to fire Loxley? The people that believe that we need to be a top 5 program in basketball or we're a failure. Those are the crazy fans I shit on.
Yeah, those fans don't have anything to do with fair weather fans or diehard fans, because those people that bitch like that are on both sides of that spectrum. It's the people that really don't know a whole lot about the program and the people that know a lot about the program but are bitching about the wrong things. Yeah. My point in bringing this up,
I would appreciate fair weather Terp fans. Please, guys, whenever we're winning, come on into my stadium.
But that's the mantra of the state of Maryland. Yeah. It's not just a Terp thing. It's not an Oriole thing. It's the fans in general in this state follow a winning team, and they show up in hordes when we're winning.
There's a lot of us. It's a very crowded state.
We haven't seen that at Maryland in a very long time because they haven't been competitive in a very long time.
Well, we saw the Penn State game. It went really well.
The Penn State game that most of those fans were Penn State fans in.
I still argue that.
Whole
it was
lot of
at
white
least
in that
45% Maryland.
Okay, there were a lot of Maryland fans in there. It was a big game. That's also a local rival. It just doesn't happen very often, and that was my whole point in this, is that I'm not trying to downgrade your status with the Orioles. I just think that you are a fair weather Oriole fan.
That's the thing, is the point is not that I'm arguing that I'm not a fair weather Oriole fan. 100% I am a fair weather Oriole fan.
Okay.
My only argument is I don't think that those are the fans that I've shit on in the past. I don't know. You said that I treat the things I complain about the Maryland fans are what I am for the Orioles, and that's where I disagree. I am a fair weather Oriole fan. There's no doubt about that in my mind. But
okay, yes, we are on Spotify.
Should be.
Yeah, we are.
If we're not,
Sean,
let me know.
Yeah, no, we're on Spotify. We're on iHeartRadio, iTunes. Which, speaking of that, and I'm going to bring this up on air. I was going to actually talk to you about this off air, but I'd be interested to see what other people thought, because I got an email this morning from Apple that said they're going to allow a subscription service on Apple Podcasts where you can charge per subscription to your podcast. So in other words, it wouldn't be just a public podcast anymore. And you can set that subscription
Whatever you want.
to whatever. Now, I've told you guys on air a million times, for those that have been following this for years, this has never been a money grab for me at all. I do this as a hobby because I love doing it. And yeah, I put money into it.
Dedicated my basement to this.
Right, exactly. Like we put the money into this because we're tech guys and we just want it to look good. I hold myself to a high standard, all of that. But I'd be curious to see like what fans thought about maybe like doing a subscription to 99 cents, right? Because I know a lot of fans have reached out to us in the past about how can I donate? How can I contribute? And I know a lot of like YouTubers and that kind of stuff, they have like the donation tabs that pop up, and while they're doing their streams, people are constantly donating money to get their like comments read on the air. I'd be curious as to what the reaction would be if we did 99 cents
I love
subscription
catching a new fan's reaction here.
per month. What people would think.
Sean says this.
Welcome,
is
Sean. We're glad to have
Looks like
you.
it was just, dude. We put
Appreciate
a lot of time into, as Fred alluded to. We're both tech guys when it comes to this type. The sound quality that you're hearing, the video quality. We put a lot of time, money, and effort, of our own. That honestly, I can guarantee you 100%, we have never recouped. It is literally just a hobby for us that we've had fun with.
So let me ask it this way, because all three of you were fans of the show before you became part of the show, right? If you were still in, I think I know where Ryan lies on this, but if all three of you were still on the outside looking in as fans and you were watching the show, would a subscription service of 99 cents a month turn you away from listening to the show?
Hell no.
No.
Not a chance in hell.
No, I would pay it, but I think there's 1,000 other ways.
I understand this is my baby. Don't worry about hurting my feelings if 99 cents is going to make or break it. I'm curious because I started thinking about it today, and I'm like, God, if we have 5,000 people that subscribe to us, if we have 5,000 people that subscribe to us on Apple iTunes,
show them the casting couch.
Would that turn us away?
Fuck Apple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the other side to that is
that's a whole other story.
Is our side, we obviously there's a lot of free content platforms, right? So that would
So Sean brings up the Patreon thing, and that's what a lot of YouTubers do.
There way before the paid
Ryan and I have talked about that. Like I said, I've never once been one to want to come off as a money grab, and it's just me personally, because I've always said, this is a hobby as long as I can break even. And that's why we have the MD Crash. And I love Jobeth, and I love all the support that he's given us. But that sponsorship allows us to break even. We don't make any money on the show, but people constantly ask, how can they give back? How can they show support? And I've actually opened up a little bit to it just to see if it would turn people off.
Change your Twitter handle to your Cash App and move on.
No, so I mean, we have you and I have talked about this before. Even
Joe,
before
that's a
you
good
and Ryan.
question. How much does Apple take is the question. That's a very good question.
Yeah, I'm sure a majority.
It's probably like 4 or 5% usually is kind of the going rate on those type of things. But like Patreon and that type of stuff, usually I think Patreon's 3%. I think that's one of those things that we've considered doing, and donation. But like we've always said, like it's not like either of us to ask you, the fans, for money. Like, that's
Yeah.
the weird thing, I think, for both of us. The sponsorships, they're great because they help us. Even the beer sponsorship gets us a brew every week. It goes through, and we could do more with that. We may do more eventually with that, but it's weird for us. But if you guys are willing to do it, maybe we need to set something up.
You can only make it. Always make it OnlyFans. I want to see Fred on OnlyFans. Let's go, big boy.
Don't tempt me. Don't tempt me.
I'm in.
Wait. Sean, you have to go back. We'll have to find you
Sean's
the
my
episode.
new favorite fan.
Well, we have to find him the episode where you took your shirt off.
Yeah,
Oh,
true.
no.
I got that.
Don't look that episode
Yeah,
up.
don't look that episode up. What did he say? He said, "In our eyes, as a fan, we crave content and are willing to pay for more content and even just support the show."
And that's what I'm saying.
Appreciate it, man.
And we really appreciate that. It's just, I wonder
Well,
if
check out
that's
Shell and Tell then.
I wonder if that's the majority of fans. If the
Buy some
majority of fans
merchandise.
feel that way, because we do. We get a lot. Listen, the live show doing this video stream has really taken our show to the next level, and we appreciate the couple of hundred people that tune into us live week in and week out. The some people come back every single week. Some people come in here and there. We have a cluster of people that tune in all the time to the live show. But our real numbers come from the audio podcast, especially Apple. And the last thing that I would want to do is put something up that might push half those fans away. Half of them are like, hell yeah, I'm in. Here's 99 cents, no problem. But the last thing I want to do is push 2,500 people away that are like,
I think
screw that.
What we'll have to do, and maybe we can put it out there for the draft episode. We can figure something out. There are ways that we can put something out there for you guys that if you choose to donate, support the show. You can more than can, but we're not gonna right now. We're not gonna advertise and say, "Oh, give us money so you can watch the show." No, if you want to donate and help us out,
like I said,
it helps us recoup a little money.
I struggled even bringing this up tonight because I really didn't want to bring it up on air, but
I can guarantee you,
coming out of my
there's
shell.
probably There's at least $5,000, if not more, in equipment in this room.
Yeah.
It's probably exceeding more than that.
It's a laptop
to get this to run the show.
Yeah, there's $3,000 right there just my laptop.
So there is a lot that goes into this, but it's always been fun for us. So we'll look into it. We'll figure it out. He said the audio platforms are much easier. Doesn't eat into your phone data as much as YouTube. Yes, but
Makes
and
sense.
YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, that's the same thing. But we love the video side of it too. It's been fun for us to create what you see in front of you. So we'll look at it. Maybe for the draft we can set something up, and if people want to support the show, then they absolutely can, and we'll go from there.
All right, man. Sounds good, Sean. Appreciate you subscribing to the show. Good to see you in the chat room for the first time. If you didn't catch it, we are coming next Thursday for the draft. We're doing a draft special, 7:30. So if you're a Ravens fan, I don't know if you're a Ravens fan or not. If you are a Ravens fan, have that NFL draft up on your TV. Have us up on your phone.
Sean,
come in the chat room, man. We welcome you. We
Sean,
appreciate
all
it.
my favorite fans get nicknames, so I hope you're not offended by your new name being Sean OnlyFans. All right, buddy?
There you go.
OnlyFans Sean. I love
OnlyFans
it.
Sean.
There it is. I appreciate it, guys. We'll see you next week.